Hello and welcome to another Frenchman Learns About Japan reaction stream, specifically the Otaku stream, subcategories I guess, where we check out videos related to like many otaku topic I guess, manga, anime, visual novel, and things like that, because yes, as always, I know otaku can be, a lot of different things. You can be a trained otaku, a military otaku, but I think in the West, most people, otaku, they think of manga and all that. So that's what we check out. I've got a pretty good assortment of video today, some interesting subject, so we're gonna learn as always. You can find the link to the videos we're gonna watch in the description. Timestamps if you're watching the VOD, the link to my Discord if you want to follow me, my stream amount and Patreon where you can support me, request reaction, that kind of stuff. I've got a good amount of variety today, so it should be a good one. That's why I decided to start early, so we can do a lot of videos. And also because it's gonna be hot again today. It's been 3 days right now of a new heat wave, and it's not been fun, Every time, like, what's hardcore is not how hot it is during the day, is that it doesn't go down during the night. Or like, it only goes down partially, right? So you don't have a moment of fresh air, and the fan doesn't do much, so yeah. Today's gonna be bad too, but I think during this night it's gonna be finally under 20, so I'm praying, I'm praying it actually is, and I can feel refreshed, because man, it's really like tiring on the body, tiring on the mind, and I'm complaining despite the fact that like, my job is this channel, I'm, indoor all day, and my old job I used to like, during this kind of crazy summer, I used to be outside in the sun. I don't know if it's like, I'm not used to it anymore, or like I've gotten older so I'm less good at resisting it, but man, I don't like the heat. Seriously. Anyway, enough yapping, let's get into the videos. So first we have Red Joker, how a single post exposed Japan Hellhole manga industry. I have zero context, and I thought it would be interesting, so let's learn about it.
I don't like making this sort of...
Let's do subtitles, English to Japanese, for my Japanese viewers.
Okay, so normally I don't like making this sort of drama report kind of video, but this horrible news of mangaka abuse by Kodansha, one of Japan's largest manga publishers, has been all over Japanese social media and even news. I
have not seen the news.
Truly cannot believe no one on the English side has even been talking about it, and I think you guys deserve to know. So basically, Akane Shimizu, the mangaka of Cells at Work, I'm sure you've heard of it before, it's super famous, just accused Kodansha of many things they did to her, particularly her editor. This includes completely ignoring all of her requests for assistance, causing her to grossly overwork, verbally and personally attacking her, deleting her name off the credits in Cells at Work spin-offs, and just
that's crazy.
Justifying it, unkept promises, and ignoring her request for medical professional consultations to ensure her manga is scientifically correct, brushing her off by saying, it's just a manga. It doesn't have to be taken that seriously.
Well, this is one of a start to the video.
Manga company editor said this, by the way, and ultimately causing her to almost take her own life.
So, right away my question is like, is it the full company or is it just one guy? It's pretty well known, or somewhat well known, that manga editors have a lot of power, right? Especially the older one, they're often like the link between the company and the mangaka, right? And they're really the one like that, often tell the mangaka you can do this, you can do that, and kind of like are in between, so it's a lot of power, right? So again, I wonder if it's just one guy or the whole company. I mean, not saying that like the manga industry isn't fucked up. I mean, we all know it is. Weekly manga especially is, not a way for anyone to live. As much as I love manga, I cannot admit that.
Now, I will go over these one by one, but do keep in mind that these are just allegations for the time being, although Kodansha has already admitted to all of it and apologized, alongside other mangakas speaking out on the horrible situation. So it is very likely true in my opinion, but just keep in mind that they are technically still allegations. Okay, so first we have the medical consultations. So in 2015, Shimizu-sensei debuted in monthly shonen series.
Like seriously, this is insane to me because there's so many manga that literally get praised for like how accurate they are, you know. Hello Soul, yeah, so the news about the raining. It's Japan is not getting a break, and I saw today Indonesia just had like a crazy earthquake, magnitude 7.7 I think. Earth is not doing very well. Yeah, stay safe, all I can say. But yeah, as I was talking about, like, you know, many manga are like literally famous for like being accurate about things, and so I'm surprised that like a manga editor in charge of a manga about like, you know, being like a teaching manga about the human body would be so stupid as to complain that the mangaka wants to like get professional opinion about stuff, you know. Yeah, Colombia was like a week or two ago I think. Yeah, it's not great, and here in Europe we are having like crazy drought, right? I think it's in Albania, they had like so little water in the river that they didn't have enough water to like power the nuclear, you know, power plant, and so, you know, they had like a lot of restriction on electricity and all that. It's kind of bad everywhere right now. Yeah. The reaction of Ataraku Saibo was pretty good. It's a nice show, yeah. I remember watching it. It's a nice show.
A pretty prestigious magazine with the manga Cells at Work. This is a magazine under the publisher Kodansha. Now, Cells at Work is basically a story that turns all the cells in a human body into anime characters and goes through their daily life and work. Due to the nature of the show, Shimizu-sensei wanted to have the entire story be scientifically accurate to what cells actually do in the human body. She was promised from the very beginning that Kodansha would provide a medical consultant to her for the manga. However, this came to be completely ignored, and even though she requested many times, her editor just completely ignored her requests. It was assumed that she would first draw the draft.
No, I haven't. I've seen the anime of Bakuman, but I didn't even know there was live action. Yeah, I didn't even know. Are they good?
And then a medical supervisor would correct any factual inaccuracies. But as we know now, this professional never existed, leading to Volume 1 being published as it is. Obviously, Shimizu-sensei, with no biology background, makes several mistakes in cell functions and biology, and these mistakes get harshly criticized by readers. Frustrated, Shimizu-sensei requests for medical supervision again, something she was initially promised, and this time was refused, with her editor directly telling her, and I quote, "It's just manga. Being sloppy and not taking it seriously is fine." Her
like makes me want to punch someone to hear that. It's just manga, like seriously. How can you be a manga editor and have so little love for the craft? I mean, we know that in the entertainment industry there's so many people like that, right? But seriously.
Manga editor said this to a mangaka doing manga out of passion in a manga publishing company. Shimizu-sensei, however, would not let this slide and started buying medical reference books at her own expense with her own money to ensure her cell functions are biologically accurate.
Well, yeah, I'm sure she's like terrified that if she makes more mistake, people are gonna like attack her for it, even though it's not her fault. I mean, she wants to not make mistake, but they're not giving her like the chance. Bakuman live action is acted by Sato Takeru, who acted Ataraku Saibo and the ED in second actions Takarajima. Interesting. The ED movie is very good. Okay. Some connection. Yeah. I really love Bakuman, so maybe I should try to watch the live action. It's been a long time since I watched the anime. Like 10 years at least.
while no medical supervision was ever given. She requests this several times over the next few years, but is always ignored or refused. This introduces a huge workload on her, because manga deadlines and mangaka work life is already a hell of its own. But having to read medical books with no background and ensure all your facts are accurate is insane. The thing is, these accuracies played an integral part of not just making the manga, well, succeed, but also help many kids become interested in and learn cell biology and earned worldwide praise for it. Shimon Sakaguchi, a Nobel Prize winner in medicine, chose a Cells at Work manga to donate to the Nobel Museum in Stockholm as a keepsake. This is...
That's cool. That's really cool. I mean, I do remember when season 1 of the anime aired, there was a lot of like Doctor React video where, you know, they seem pretty happy about the accuracy of things.
Is literally the person who won a Nobel Prize through cell research. Many official medical institutes publicly praise and recommend cells at work for learning, including the Tokyo University of Pharmacy and the Niigata City Medical Association. The manga also collaborating with Tokyo Endovascular Challenging Conference to produce teaching tools at med school. Moreover, many parents, Japanese med students, university pharmacy department.
Yamagosho's brother is a doctor, and he asked many things. But APTX, fair enough. I mean, maybe eventually the science of it will be explained in the manga. Because I think right now, with how far I've gotten, they haven't really explained any kind of science of how it works or anything.
Quote cells at work as their inspiration, with some footnotes even reaching med school exam level detail. This is the kind of stuff, the impact, that a leading manga publisher editor failed to see. And not just that, but degraded the mangaka for wanting to be accurate. It's so disrespectful to manga as an editor. But it only gets worse from here. Alongside the request for medical supervision, Shimizu sensei also from the early stages requested professional assistance, because she was already overworked as fuck. Again, ignored. She had to resort to hiring a few...
How is that even ignored? I don't get it. Like, how can they even refuse? Like, she's doing a weekly manga. What do you mean ignored? Don't all mangaka that do weekly manga, like, they literally cannot do it solo? Or am I crazy? Like, they need assistant for the background and stuff like that? I didn't know it had that big boobs. There's good character design in Cell at Work, yes. There's big boobs selling your body.
Or for former classmates to help her out, but even they weren't willing to do everything, and this could only cover so much. So she just constantly pulled all-nighters to finish chapters. Despite this, in 2016, some readers noticed her declining art quality in the manga and blamed her for over-relying on assistants. Now again, this is technically not the reader's fault because they didn't know what was going on in the background. Technically you could say they're asses, but yeah. It was at this point that again, to fix these issues, she requested for assistance so she could actually have a manageable workload, but her editor dismissed and criticized her, saying, "A person with your personality only knows how to blame others. No matter who you do it with, the end result will always be the same."
Okay, I mean, clearly, like, this guy is a piece of shit, but I wonder if the problem too is simply that, you know, how long did she wait until she tried to tell anyone about this? I mean, I don't know. I know it's like the Japanese way of not confronting things too much, right? But this guy has already done so many bad things. I feel like she should try to talk to the boss of Kodansha or something. I hope the story doesn't go that she did and they also like rejected her or something, but this guy is clearly like the worst editor or something. Yeah. It's crazy. But at the same time, like again, it's very well known that many editors are just not great. Like Toriyama's editor helped him with like changing things for the better, but also he was known for like, you know, Toriyama kind of hated him. Also, I think Tite Kubo, he really disliked his editor. You know, like he would fight with him a lot.
Shimizu sensei was already so stressed back in 2015 when having to deal with the medical books thing that she developed trichotillomania, a mental health condition that involves an irresistible, recurrent urge to pull out one's own hair. But it was at this point that for the first time, she simply considered taking her own life by jumping in front of a train. Thankfully, she didn't. In 2017 and 2018, Shimizu sensei continued to request for assistance and was finally promised some in a formal meeting with the editorial department. But in the end, end, they gave her rookie aspiring manga artists instead of, professionally trained assistants. And finally, the straw that broke the camel's back was when...
Okay, so it's not just the editor, like, it's a lot more people being completely stupid.
When her editor in 2018 demanded major story changes, telling Shimizu that a supervisor is not very happy with it, but didn't share why this so-called supervisor's reasons. Now, keep in mind, this supervisor never made any direct contact with Shimizu-sensei. This editor is just quoting this so-called supervisor's words. When Shimizu-sensei objected to these changes, this editor tells her that everything you do is unnecessary, and you don't have the ability to structure this any better. This finally broke Shimizu-sensei, as she was diagnosed with depression and the manga of Cells at Work goes into hiatus. The fucked up thing is, at the time, the hiatus was explained by preparing a better serialization environment, with nobody actually knowing the truth. During the hiatus, Shimizu-sensei continuously asked for assistance, but they never came. So she got fed.
Again, like, I guess she's scared of, like, talking about it at that point, right? I mean, because she might completely lose her manga and all that. But at the same time, it's like, come on, I mean, I can't imagine waiting that long to say something. I mean, I don't know.
Up and just suggested ending the series due to her mental strain.
I'm not blaming her, obviously. Like, again, it's just sad, and I wish things would have been resolved earlier and faster.
Shimizu-sensei felt like even spin-off creators got proper support while she didn't, and this essentially almost broke the last straw.
I mean, it's very likely if they have like different editor, it's very likely that they have proper editor who are nice, and it's very possible.
As Shimizu-sensei tied a noose, but thankfully didn't do it. The series finally came back after 3 years in 2021 just to give an ending. After the manga ended, Shimizu-sensei finally spoke out to cut ties with this abusive editorial department. What did they do in return? They tampered with credits! In certain spin-offs of Cells at Work afterwards, they literally changed the credits from original work, Akane Shimizu, which is usually on every original manga/anime, to cooperation, Shimizu production. But even worse, she found out recently that in the Cells at Work encyclopedia, her name was entirely removed and replaced with the series.
It's so like beyond petty. I mean, there's a point where they're doing this in the public. Hello, sir. Nice to see you. Like, it's so overly petty. I mean, I don't know, like, they're like little kids. It's crazy. Manga industry has many issues. Companies betray mangaka. Jump is clean. Fair enough.
Editorial department's name. She only discovered this by herself 7 years after the book was published, with no one telling her. And when she contacted the department to ask about this, they told her that her name was removed so she wouldn't be blamed for errors given her dissatisfaction with the medical supervision. They removed the original author's name from the credits for a reason like that. What's also pointed out by Japanese fans and very fucked up is, since they removed/changed her name in the credits, they most likely did not pay her the royalty fees that she should have gotten from these works. But this allegation was never directly made by Shimizu-sensei herself, just an interpretation by fans, albeit a pretty reliable one since other mangaka have also mentioned this. After enduring for so long, Shimizu-sensei finally revealed everything in a long string of Twitter posts on July 1st, which is where we are now. In a few days, Kodansha, specifically the series editorial department, issued a public apology.
Do you know Sexy Tanaka-san case? Nope. Never heard about that. Should I watch a video about that?
To Shimizu-sensei, and basically admitted to everything she accused them of. To be specific, they claimed that they could not appropriately implement the establishment of a medical supervision system or the construction of an appropriate art production environment.
All she asks is for like the most basic thing, like 2 or 3 assistants, and literally like just a doctor to be able to talk to about like medical stuff. That's all she asked. She did not ask for anything crazy.
For some spin-off works and media adaptation derivative publications after serialization, there were items for which the mangaka's prior confirmation was not appropriately carried out regarding credit notation, and that these deficiencies in the editorial department's management system and inappropriate handling caused Shimizu sensei great stress. They also claim that the editor in question has already been removed from Miss Shimizu's charge, and that
he shouldn't be put into anyone else's charge, he should be fired.
they were in discussions with Shimizu sensei to settle past circumstances, to which Shimizu sensei also confirmed. What discussions? We don't know. Japanese fans are enraged at the entire situation at Kodansha,
Good.
as it showed how fucked up one of the biggest manga publishers were. But
I mean, again, like, already in the first place, any mangaka that's going into the weekly manga world, right? They are literally, like, doing it knowing that they are, like, sacrificing their health, right? I mean, weekly manga, you know, there's no one that does it, that seems to do it while staying okay, right? It's really mostly something that messes up people. So, you know, to even be able to do it, you need the company to, like, support you, right? Like, assistant, helping you with, you know, stuff like research and all that. So it's insane that, you know, they were treating someone like that. I mean, especially like a popular author, right? I mean, seriously.
they were also enraged at the apology letter because it didn't do anything. A random text apology from a big company means nothing realistically, but more importantly, people pointed out that this certain editor that made Shimizu sensei's life hell was only removed from Shimizu sensei's charge.
Right.
Like, they didn't even...
It's like they do in the US, right? Cop kills a guy that's unarmed, and then it's like, he's been suspended for 2 months and we're just transferring him to a different police station, you know, it's okay. I mean, he said my bad, it's okay.
fire or punish him/her or anything for this fucked up situation. What fueled fans' enragement towards Kodansha is the many other mangakas and creators who spoke up of their own situation after Shimizu sensei made the post. For
Obviously, there's no way it's only one person.
example, Kayata Maru, an artist of Yojo to Scoop, to Magano, claimed that on the series comicalization, yes, that same department as Shimizu sensei, they didn't track overseas digital translated editions, and royalties went unpaid for over a year with no apology. Also that they ignored her near hospitalization weight loss situation from 2022 and just continued to force her on a half-year no hiatus schedule. Fujiya Izuko, the artist of Metal Slime wo Taoshimakutta, also claimed that her series Sayonara no Paredo went unfinished because from 2016 to 2019 there were various troubles with that very same editorial department, and it became difficult environmentally and mentally.
Yes, so it's definitely more than just one guy. It's the upper management, not just the middleman, the editor. It's really like everybody is absolutely terrible at their job.
To continue. Although they do mention that there are still good editors in the department. But even beyond Kodansha, Meiji Metal...
I mean, stuff like Shirobako or even Bakuman, you know, which are manga/anime about the industry, they do cover that, right? I mean, a lot of the management, sometimes the editors tend to be not that great, I would say.
artist of Mahou Shoujo, Tomoyaku Senso, on the magazine Shueisha Jump Plus, an editorial department repeatedly compared her to Shimizu sensei, saying stuff like, "You are inferior compared to Shimizu sensei, and when her first serialization ended, at this rate, you'll be a loser." She says she later collapsed, vomited, and was hospitalized, and reflected that there was a tendency to corner artists mentally by forcing them into a mold, which fueled the speculation that it's not just Kodansha or Sirius. Many of the big manga publishers' editorial departments are fucked up. I'm not gonna go over every single accusation, but there really were a lot of mangakas and artists also coming out with their own horrible stories about the editors and publishing companies. After Shimizu sensei's accusations came to light,
It really makes you, you know, rethink anytime you're reading a manga and you think, you know, the story isn't that great or the art isn't as good or something, you know, rather than just think the mangaka is bad, it makes you think like what else is going on, you know, what else is going on behind the scene.
Other than the angry and sympathetic anime fans, many doctors and physicians also spoke out, praising her work for reaching that level of accuracy self-taught, and the knowledge in the manga quoted to be a high level of completeness, astonished that there wasn't a medical supervisor. That is what's happened now, and just for an inspirational mangaka who not just...
And again, you know, clearly she was insanely talented, driven to be able to like do the manga while literally learning about all this science stuff. And now, after all this experience, maybe she won't draw manga anymore, which is like, what a great way to just destroy like an incredible artist. I mean, it's so sad. It is a manga, which became a drama. It was promised that the mangaka checked the script, but the drama didn't follow her and her skill, and she killed herself. It's said that the manga company should have negotiated. That's really messed up. Huh? I haven't thought about this. Wow. Sexy person. Inako Ashiara. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, there's a Reddit post. Oh, I can't go on Reddit. Okay. Yeah. She was 50 years old too, damn, that's sad. And the more right of authors, a clear demand remained faithful to the manga. Wow. Wow. I mean, again, I'm sure, like, you know, what I can say is it's not just the manga industry, manga, anime, and frankly, all of the entertainment industry have so many fucked up things like this, right? It happen all the time. Yeah. Did you do troll in Reddit? No. It's because I'm using a VPN, and I guess Reddit doesn't like that. It's weird because on my other browser it loads, but on this one it doesn't want to. Yeah.
Made a mega hot manga and anime, but inspired a generation of doctors, you'd think she'd get treated like royalty, but no. Like, it's all so fucked up. But even morals aside, stuff like not getting a medical supervisor, not caring about accuracy, being sloppy, this is stuff that would just directly hurt their business. These editors aren't just abusive.
It really reminds me of some literal plots I think there was in Bakuman, where again, some editor literally, like, some of them are still like fan of manga, right? So they really want to help the author in making something good, and you know, and they have like a good art, right? But then some editors have like, you know, kind of lost their passion for manga, and they become someone who's just here to like, you know, who's kind of like there to make profit or something, and so they treat the mangaka like shit, and they just try to make them do a story that's gonna make more money or something. You know.
They're straight up incompetent. Imagine how much more they could have expanded on, honestly. It is overall a disgusting situation, and honestly, given Japanese work culture and their company culture, this will unfortunately probably still get buried over time with the billion other cases of artists and mangakas being abused. But I still really hope this information reaches as many people on the English side as possible, as I've barely seen anyone talk about this, and I
did not see the news.
Hope Japanese fans put enough pressure on these manga publishing companies to change something, because come on, these are the people who wrote stories loved by many weebs and changed lives. They absolutely deserve better. The whole situation is absolutely blowing up in Japan, with even news sites reporting it. Is it really hopium to hope something can change? If there's any good news in this situation, it's that at least Shimizu Sensei is in a pretty good situation right now, and has a very good relationship with her current editor, while publishing her new manga.
Oh, so she's still doing manga, okay. That's frankly like what I was afraid of, that she would just not do manga anymore or something. That's good.
Yellow Flame. To also be clear, this is a completely different situation from the sexual assault allegations Shimizu Sensei made against some of her relatives about a month ago. These are two wholly different situations.
Damn.
God damn, I really hope Shimizu Sensei has a happier future. The things she's been through are fucked up. Unlike my usual videos, this is still a very recent event, so if there are any big new updates, I'll post all of it in the pinned comment. I hope I've managed to inform you guys of this fucked up situation, and I hope Shimizu Sensei and all all the other creators involved get the justice they deserve. Special thanks to Vicente because
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think mangaka should be treated as like gods per se, right? Where like, you know, the editor and all that should do whatever they want. I think, you know, many manga have been great because there was a symbiotic relationship, right? Where the mangaka has ideas and then the editor and maybe the editorial departments kind of like are like, this isn't good, this is good, focus on this, don't focus on that, and then there's discussion, you know. So I don't think like mangaka should be good and just told to like do whatever they want, right? But at the same time, yeah, this is like the opposite to what you should do. I think there's no, like, I'm stating the obvious, but seriously, like every weekly manga artist should have assistants, and if you're doing a series that needs research like that, I mean, why would you deny them the research to make the manga good? And if it's good, it might sell more. Like, seriously. People post mini manga. Some of them are not newish or even don't make sense, but cute Ichikara can gain 10k like. I wonder if Manga Magazine will be needed by mangaka. I mean, it's definitely like, you know, an interesting way to think, right? Like, for example, like, imagine some mangaka just decide, you know, to just start doing a manga, but just publish it online, yeah, like on Twitter or Pixiv or something, you know, and the manga becomes very popular, right? I think what happens most of the time is that, you know, then like a famous magazine will contact them and they will be picked up. But what if they say no, I just want to keep doing it myself? Then more people will want to do the same thing, right? Like self-publish, you know? I mean, kind of like a doujinshi, I guess. Yeah, could be interesting. Could be interesting. Yeah. Especially now that like, we saw the news recently that like Shonen Jump for the first time ever is below 1 million sales. You know, the physical version, right? Basically saying that like most people are reading it online. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Okay, well, very sad situation. I had no idea about any of this. I like Cell at Work, even though I haven't really watched everything from it. And you know, I hope that she can be happy in other manga, right? That's all I can say, yeah. Really sad situation. Seriously. Okay, great video. Next we have a video by the channel The August Hole. You will never see this visual novel ever. What does that mean? I don't know. Let's find out.
A high-quality visual novel takes time to release. What's much harder to make peace with, though, is that when a game you love announces a sequel and then years upon years pass with no updates at all. This video is about those games. These are visual novels that are either indefinitely delayed, silently cancelled, in development hell for so long the fanbase is clearly coping, or...
I mean, the biggest thing I can think of right away is the Angel Beats the Angel Beat visual novel, yeah. The first one came out, and for whatever it's great, but it was planned to be multiple, and then it never happened. For a bunch of reasons. One of them was like, obviously, Jun Maeda, the legendary writer, having a lot of like health and mental issue. Then obviously things became like gacha. You know, like most visual novel companies started doing gacha because it makes more money. And, you know, Jun Maeda started writing for Evan Bonred, a gacha. And he even put some of his story ideas for like that Angel Beats thing in Angel Beats collab into the Evan Bonred gacha. And so it's kind of official now that that Angel Beats visual novel project is basically killed. And I'm really sad about it. That's the only one I can think of.
or exists in limbo where they're technically not cancelled, but also clearly not coming out anytime soon. That one will be the last title I will talk about today. Hi, my name is August, and depressingly, I'm going to talk about visual novels that will probably, to definitely, never come out. Some of these have legitimate sympathetic reasons behind their delays, others are just executive decisions due to certain conditions, and some of them I am less optimistic about due to the author's motivations and other priorities. So let's start with a real mixed bag of all of those. Kukonia no Nakukoroni / Kukonia.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, I totally forgot about that. That's the other big one. Obviously, as a massive fan of Ryukishi, Higurashi, and Umineko, I have read about the situation on this one, and even right now, literally like yesterday, I was rewatching some Higurashi. I am really sad about this one. Yeah. Frankly, you know, I mean, I'm sure he's going to talk about it. It's basically the new series from Ryukishi after Umineko, but he only released volume 1, and now it's been many years. And since then, you know, he's been involved in the newest Higurashi anime. He's done the script and the story for Silent Hill F, and people think that, yeah, he won't come back to it, both because he's been busy in like more mainstream stuff than visual novel, but also, from what I understand, because of the story that is too close to home, because of the war in the world or something.
Kukonia When They Cry Phase 2. Kukonia is Ryukishi 07's newest entry in the When They Cry series, a sci-fi story about a group of people called the Gauntlet Knights trying to prevent World War IV. Like with the other When They Cry installments, it was split into 2 parts. Kukonia Phase 1 came out in October 2019, and Phase 2 was scheduled for 2020. Fans were waiting for the conclusion to Kukonia, and then COVID hit. And then the Russian-Ukraine war happened. In his words, it was like writing about Godzilla, and Godzilla really ended up coming. In a response to a fan work in 2023, Ryukishi said he didn't feel right writing about World War as entertainment when an actual war conflict is going on.
Which again, I've seen some people criticize that statement, and I kind of agree. It's a bit of a weird statement, because in recorded human history, the last couple thousand years, I don't think there's been any years without some kind of war going on. So, you know, there isn't really a world war going on right now, but there's literally like multiple wars, right? Russia, Ukraine, the civil war in Myanmar, I think there's stuff going on in Sudan, Somalia, the Palestinian genocide. I mean, there's a lot of war going on all the time, you know? I mean, there's never really a good time to write a war story if you're afraid that it feels too real, because literally, like, since I was born 28 years ago, I mean, I don't think there's been a single year where there isn't some war in the world. It's all the time, you know. So I wonder if there's other reason he doesn't want to continue it.
Which is, to his credit, a genuinely thoughtful reason to pause. The problem is that the world has not stopped being in conflict, and world tensions have not simmered down at all. However, there's also the major fact that the Kukonia director, Nakao Boshi, has been suffering from an illness since 2020, fully preventing them from resuming their work altogether. That said, Ryukishi hasn't just been sitting around doing nothing. In the meanwhile, since announcing the delay in 2020, he's been working on multiple projects, writing a collaboration key visual novel called Loopers, the
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. I need to read it.
Higurashi Go/Sotsu anime/manga.
This is one of the worst things ever made, but I'll give it to him. From what I understand, he only gave the idea to the people who made the anime. And the anime is terrible. I mean, I hate it. I don't think Higurashi needed to come back. But from what I understand, at least, again, he just gave the idea, and then it's the people on the anime staff that wrote the story. So I will give him a pass for that, you know. I think Silent Hill F has shown that he's still a really awesome writer, you know. But we don't talk about Higurashi Goensutsu. We don't talk about it. It doesn't exist. Thank you.
The Garo Katsu visual novels, and of all things, writing the story for Silent Hill F. However, fans have been patiently waiting, some others being ironically vocal. There's a particular Twitter account called Is Kukonia Phase 2 Out Yet?, which has existed long enough to have over 1,000 posts, each one of them being some variation of no. I don't think Kukonia is dead, and I believe Ryukishi won't abandon it. He has claimed that Kukonia was his reason to work and live, but in the meanwhile, fans will be patiently waiting until conditions have gotten better.
I don't know, again, like, I hope that he does it because, you know, I love Higurashi, I love Mineko, and I'd love to read another, like, visual novel epic from him, but it's already been a long time, right? I mean, he's put this story on pause for like 5, 6, 7 years already. I assume for like an author it's kind of hard. I mean, the most famous example right now is George R.R. Martin, the author of Game of Thrones, right? I think it's been like 10 or 15 years since he should have released the final book of Game of Thrones, and he just can't seem to do it. He just can't seem to do it, yeah. And I'm sure like the longer time passes, the more impossible it seems to do.
And so, until then, When They Cry will continue to be perpetuated through Higurashi, and
Yeah, there's a new Higurashi anime.
only Higurashi, when Umineko fans cry. But
I mean, I would love for an Umineko anime, but you know, the amount of work to put into that, it would need to be like 50 to 100 episodes, and you would need to cut out a lot from the game because there's too much repetition. It would be a crazy project.
in comparison to a title that has been indefinitely postponed, this next series actually has an estimated roadmap to their most anticipated title
That's
ever,
Muv-Luv?
despite all the problems the company is facing right now. Age's Muv-Luv Resonative and Integrate. In 2024, Age laid out a roadmap for the Muv-Luv series, The Road to Integrate, their long-term plan for the future of Muv-Luv. Resonative is the conclusion to the Muv-Luv Unlimited The Day series, while
I have not dove that deep into Muv-Luv. I've read the original, Unlimited, Extra, and then the Legendary Alternative. But that game is already from 20 years ago, and then I haven't touched anything past that. All of the Muv-Luv spin-off I haven't really touched yet. I think because a lot of them were not translated, I think. Though I am interested because I love the world, right? Like giant mech and humanity surviving against like alien invasion is pretty sick. But yeah, I haven't really kept up. The only thing I know is that they had a gacha recently that did really bad or something. So I think the company is not doing great.
Integrate is a proper sequel to Muv-Luv Alternative, set 10 years after, featuring a brand new protagonist. As of the time of this video, we are currently here on the roadmap with Muv-Luv Tactics upcoming, but this is the most critical junction of modern Muv-Luv. This game is very important because it serves as their proof of concept for incorporating strategy RPG gameplay into every title onward. The project producer states that the current scope of Muv-Luv Integrate and Resonative will cost too much money to develop unless they turn them into SRPG/visual novel hybrids for modern day marketability towards a mainstream audience. And this is taking all hybrids for modern day marketability towards a mainstream audience.
Okay, well, I found Best Girl. I love the character design. She's like red skinned a little bit and tattoos, that's great.
And this is taken all into context given that there have been numerous mentions of financial difficulties over at the company. I do have expectations for this. To reiterate, Age is clearly still active and is invested in this roadmap for Muv-Luv's future, releasing mobile and console versions of previous installments both in the East and the West. And most recently, brand new announcements for Muv-Luv Tactics, Kaladisa, and Nightmare, a new SRPG Muv-Luv game releasing in 2027, and Muv-Luv Girls Garden, the franchise's RPG gacha game having an English release in Q4 2026.
Wait, when is this video made? 1 month ago, okay. I must be confusing it with something else. I thought that I had read that they already had a gacha that failed. I mean, it's possible they did because many franchises get many different gacha, right? Okay.
Grade does feel like it will be released in the next decade, conditionally on Tactics success. God, I hope that Muv-Luv Tactics is successful and the profits from Muv-Luv Girls Garden, aka Muv-Luv Blue Archive, is helping.
I hope so. I mean, again, I've only read up to Alternative, which came out like 20 years ago, right? So I have no idea if the stuff since then has been good. But I hope it has been, and so I hope that there's more of it when I get back into the franchise. Yeah. Next
up is a visual novel series in which the developers certainly changed their minds when thinking of a sequel. Not once, but twice. Aokana's Y and Minamo If. Aokana is a fan favorite.
I am about to be controversial, but I had watched the Aokana anime when it aired 10 years ago or so. I thought it was alright. And then years later I tried to read the VN, and while I liked the character design, and I kind of liked the flying sport concept or whatever, I dropped it after like 10 hours or something. I just didn't feel like the characters were very interesting or anything. It was a good quality VN in terms of like, you know, art, music and all that, but, you know, instead of like the original setting with like the flying shoes, yeah. So I dropped it. That's my controversial take. I didn't like it much.
wholesome visual novel series, a sports story all about competitive dogfighting that also doubles as a passionate romance story. It won the first place award in 2014 in the Moe Game Awards, and romance fans both in the East and the West loved it. The developer, Sprite, would then go on to announce a sequel title, Aokana Zwei, at Anime Japan in March 2016. It is now 2026. Due to Sprite going on hiatus in 2018, development of Aokana Zwei was put on hold indefinitely. Now, while they never made Aokana Zwei, fans would get something else instead from the developers: Aokana fan discs for the game's most popular characters. The first fan disc, Aokana Extra 1, will be a continuation of Mashiro's route from the original story. The second fan disc, Aokana Extra 2, will be a continuation of Misaki's route from the original story. Both will be released in...
I really like this artist. One that I've completed with this artist is Koi Senkyo Chocolate, I think? Wait, let me look it up. Visual novel. Senkyo Chocolate. Yeah, Koi to Senkyo to Chocolate, or Koi Choco. Yeah, I like that one. I mean, it's also one that I wouldn't say really like breaks the mold, but he has an interesting character, and again, I think the art is very cute. Very, very cute. Best girl is this one.
in 2017 and 2020 respectively, and would be released with an English translation much later. They would then go on to announce another new game, Aokana If 01 Minamo Shirase, in October 2021. The game would feature Minamo Shirase as the main heroine. However, we have not received an update regarding the development of Minamo If since its initial announcement. Sprite has been doing other projects in the meanwhile, in the form of Everlasting Flowers and Where the Golden Swallowtail Came to Rest, but nothing on the Aokana front, besides new merchandise and remastered editions. As an avid fan of Aokana, I pretty much gave up on expecting anything new from the Aokana series. But like a complete sucker, I'm probably going to end up buying the Aokana 15th Anniversary Edition when it comes out. Now,
I mean, I think a lot of this is, I've talked about it in some other video, but it's simply the change of the industry, right? I had seen a graph recently showing, the decline of Japanese visual novel in terms of like the number of them coming out. Even more if you exclude like pure Nukige, right? The basically only visual novel, right? If we're talking about like old age or like eroge, but Movler is an eroge, but it's more for the story, right? It really showed like how much it fell down. Now obviously the visual novel sphere is actually more alive than ever, but it's not in Japan, right? In the West, ton of people are making VN because it's so easy, and but obviously they don't have the same charm and appeal as Japanese VN. But in Japan again, like less VN are being made, and a lot of like the big classic visual novel company, they started making gacha basically because of the simple reason that like all you need is one even partially popular gacha, and you're gonna make so much more money than you would make selling a visual novel. Type Moon, Fate Grand Order, they have Evan Bonred, which again, like, Evan Bonred isn't even like super well known, but it's made like dozens of times what all of the key visual novel combined, Clannad included, has made for them. So, in a weird sense, some of those VN are basically like becoming gacha. They're kind of like the evolution / replacement, even though a lot of us don't really like that, right? But it sounds to like not understand, right? I mean, again, the VN market is really like, it's really, what's the word for it? Shaky, right? Well, you could say the same about gacha, but again, it's gambling, right? It seems like you're gonna make more money making a gacha if it's popular.
While big names are one such type of developer to experience all sorts of issues, indie titles aren't excluded from this too. Let's start with Nirvana, cyberpunk bartending action.
10 out of 10. It's by far one of my favorites. I played it a couple years ago and absolutely love the vibe. Yeah. And yeah, the next one hasn't come out.
The sequel to everyone's favorite cyberpunk bartending simulator, Valhalla. Valhalla came out in 2016 and it is
What I meant is Valhalla is my favorite.
one of the most beloved, under-the-radar indie visual novels ever. A very chill game where you serve futuristic drinks to all sorts of unique and interesting customers in their dystopian futuristic city. To those who've played it, will vouch for it. Everything from the vibes, the music, the conversations, and even the bartender you play, Jill Stingray herself.
Actually, recently on Steam, what's the name for it? I found like a free-to-play short VM that was heavily inspired by Valhalla, by Korean dev. It's called Dialogue. Yeah. It's about like cyberpunk setting and you're fixing waifus with a small minigame. Dialogue Steam. This one right here. I'll link it. It's short, it's free, the art is incredible. The writing is not on the level of Valhalla, but it's still not bad. And again, the art is gorgeous. I mean, look at this car design. And it's pretty short too, so I recommend it. And it was popular enough that they're making a sequel, which seems to be a lot more like ambitious, gonna be longer, a lot more character and all that, so I'm hype, definitely. I mean, I know that there's been a lot of like Valhalla-like game. I think there's Coffee Talk, there's one like that's in an isekai or something, like Adventures Bar or something, but yeah, I haven't really tried them yet. I only tried this one, but I recommend it.
The sequel, Nirvana, was announced in 2018, targeting a 2020 release. A similar game featuring an entirely brand new cast of characters and setting. Set in St. Alicia, a tourist paradise with a seedy underbelly, the new bartender Sam would serve all sorts of drinks to her customers as she also balances her family difficulties. Unfortunately, the developers posted an update in December 2020 announcing its indefinite delay. The sole programmer on the project was going through major life events and refused to hand off his role, self-admittedly. The game ended up being rebuilt from scratch. Along with all sorts of other problems like creative differences regarding the story, the developer Sukiban Games stated that due to all of these uprootings of the project, it has effectively been reset on many fronts. Nirvana's release...
I mean, they haven't said it's cancelled, there's still a chance. I mean, I believe. I've had this in my wish list for years now, I believe. Yeah.
Date will likely be announced once the game is complete. For now, Sukiban Games is focused on a different project.
Oh yeah, that's right, they're making this. I'm also pretty happy about this. I think this is coming out soon, no?
.45 Parabellum Bloodhound, with my self-assumption that Nirvana's development will pick back up once that wraps.
This looks really unique.
Steam page for Nirvana still exists, albeit dusty from being in limbo for so long. But regardless, developers expect that when Nirvana is ready to be announced, the wait will be fully worth it.
I hope so. I mean, I'll wait as long as it takes. There's not much like Nirvana. It's like Nirvana, like Valhalla. It was something, again, like the vibe, the music, the art style are amazing, but the best thing about it was the writing. Like the dialogue with this character was really something.
The other indie game I wanted to talk about is the final chapter of a solo-developed RPG Maker game. Your Turn to Die, Death Game by Majority, Chapter 3, Part...
Okay, for once something I don't know, so nothing to say about it.
2. A very beloved killing death game mystery. Having been released episodically since 2017, the last chapter was scheduled to release on Steam by February 21st, 2024, but was unfortunately postponed. Development updates have been sparse, but in their February 2025 Steam 2nd anniversary post, they confirm Nankidai is still hard at work. The final chapter is taking longer than expected, and they were hoping to share news in 2026. Out of everything in this list, Your Turn to Die Chapter 3 Part 2 is probably the closest to actually existing. It's just a matter of when in 2026. And now,
Sure.
Next up is a series that's pretty much confirmed canceled. So...
Probably, I mean, if Syconia never gets finished, it will be the #1 disappointment for me. But for now, yeah, Angel Beats is really the #1. As a massive fan of the anime, but again, someone always complains that it was too short for like covering everything it needed to cover. It's really my dream that one day they actually finish this bloody Angel Beats visual novel. Seriously.
Thoroughly cancelled that even the writer joked about it themselves. The Angel Beats Beat series. The project was meant to be a visual novel adaptation of the beloved 2010 anime, featuring story changes from the original and dedicated routes for each character. Key had outlined 6 planned volumes, each one focusing on exploring different characters' backstory. The first installment, First Beat, came out in June 2015, and it was pretty good. It was both an extended adaptation of the anime with alternative endings, plenty of comedic choices, and in-depth.
Yeah, I was reading something recently about like how there's a insane amount of choices in that one.
Story scenarios for Iwasawa, Yui, and Masushita. However, after its release, there hasn't been a single installment to the series since. Around this time, Jun Maeda was struggling with health issues, and despite attempts to revive the series,
To say the very least, I mean, he almost died a couple times.
due to complications, it never got its energy back and was pretty much cancelled in 2016. It then became a huge surprise when Heaven Burns Red, Key's gacha game RPG, and Jun Maeda's passion project would later receive a collaboration event with Angel Beats. Not one, but 3 collaboration events, each one focusing on the remaining members of the in-universe band in Angel Beats, Girls Dead Monster. These events are pretty much considered as the spiritual successor to the Angel Beats series, exploring the same themes and messages with the same emotional impact. There's even a cheeky nod towards the Beat series in the first collaboration event, so they're at least self-aware of Second Beat's non-existence, as cruel as that sounds. If you're interested, I actually did a video exploring both the content of Angel Beats First Beat as well as the collaboration event. So
I mean, I'll probably read First Beat one day. And even when the global version came, I read some of it. I loved it, but I hated the gameplay. It was so boring. So I decided I'll play Even Bun Red one day when, you know, it's shut down and they have like an offline version where you can just skip the terrible gameplay. So I'll probably read that then, yeah.
So, while it may not be the Beat series, these events really are the unofficial continuation of this cancelled series. Next up,
Yeah.
let's talk about a visual novel remake where I feel this has been in development hell for the longest time, where it was so bad that the publishers for the game outright dropped it altogether.
Yeah.
Fate Extra Record. Fate Extra Record is a
It's Nasu's fault, of course. I mean, isn't the Tsukihime remake in the same position? Like, the Tsukihime remake took like 10 years after the announcement or something to come out. It used to be such a meme, and it didn't even come out in the sense of like, only a part 1 came out of 2 parts or something. Nasu is just busy.
A full remake of the 2010 PSP game Fate Extra. Announced in July 2020 on the original game's 10th anniversary, the remake would be developed by Type Moon Studio BB
I've seen the anime for Extra. Neto is pretty cute.
and directed by Nino Kazuya. The new game features updated combat, fully voiced cutscenes, and an expanded scenario. The release date was eventually delayed from 2025 to spring 2016. The announcement was apologetic. Nino stated that he
2026.
underestimated how long it would take to record full voices for the whole game, including side characters. And then, in March 2026, Type Moon announced a delay after Bandai Namco stepped back from publishing the game. Type Moon confirmed that development is still continuing and they're looking for a new publisher, but until then, the release date of the game is undetermined.
Yuri?
It's been 6 years since, and things look pretty grim for fans.
6 years isn't that bad. Come on. Wait, so he's saying it's not Nasu's fault? It's the director, maybe?
And with all information being that Nino and Studio BB are still working on it. I genuinely don't know how to bet on this one ever coming out, but until then, I'm hopefully optimistic. Which
I mean, it's fate. I don't think it will be cancelled that easily.
takes me to my next one in terms of complete vagueness, being talked about as a concept idea, much less something in actual production, I personally think. Which on the Holy Knight / Mahoyo 2 and 3. Despite Mahoyo being a perfectly fine standalone title, the author
I think there's a movie of this that's coming out recently, and I've been wanting to read this for a long time, yeah.
Nasu Kunoko has talked about Mahoyo sequels in various interviews across the years. In one 2012 interview, Nasu revealed that the series' story starts in earnest with the second game. Later on in 2022, Nasu says that he
But
would
never
like to
released
release a Mahoyo sequel after completing other priorities. He described the format as flexible. The sequels might come in the form of visual novels, or they might be a different medium entirely.
I mean, I might be completely wrong on that because I don't actually know what he's up to, but I assume he's just too busy with Fate Gone Order, right? Which is making a gazillion billions of money, right? Compared to anything else he might be touching. So that's probably why he's just focused on that. just release more story for Fate Grand Order and keep farming money. I mean, I can't blame him.
What is real, though, is that the MiHoYo IP is clearly alive. Ufotable is releasing an anime film adaptation this year, and the recent PC and console ports have found a new wave of readers in the West. There is demand for more MiHoYo content, but whether or not Nasu is able to pick up the pen again for MiHoYo, considering his other projects, it might be a long time waiting. This bothers me in particular, considering the MiHoYo collaboration event in Fate Grand Order reveals unique details / references clearly important events to things that don't even exist in canon yet. And yet, even before MiHoYo, as much as I want it, he needs to finish the visual novel I've saved for last on this list. My most anticipated title,
The Tsukihime remake.
Tsukihime, The Other Side of Red Garden. To preface, Tsukihime, A Piece of Blue Glass Moon came out in Japan in 2021, globally in June 2024, and it was phenomenal.
It's already been 5 years, eh? I didn't even realize.
One of the best visual novels in years with AAA production quality. However, it was only one half of the original Tsukihime visual novel. At the end, if you complete the game, you unlock a teaser trailer for The Other Side of Red Garden, which hinted at the far side routes, story scenarios for Akiha, Hisui, Kohaku, and crucially for some hardcore fans, Satsuki Yumizuka.
Yes, the one who didn't get due deserve in the original, I guess.
Whose route was cut from the original 2000s game and has been one of the most requested pieces of Type Moon content for 25 years. However, Type Moon has been completely silent regarding any updates on Red Garden. General Type Moon development theories suggest that Nasu's attention has been split by other obligations.
I mean, genuinely, like, I don't want to blame the guy. As a fan, it's annoying, but, you know, just from what he's talked about here, he's involved in so much, and this is only, like, part of what he's involved in. I mean, I'm sure he's also involved in some of the manga, light novel, anime, and all of the other type of game adaptation. He's not always the main writer, I assume. Like Fate, now for a long time, has been, you know, handled by many people, right? But, you know, Nasu is, like, probably insanely busy. He has so many damn projects to write for. You know, it's a blessing and a curse to be such a popular author, right? So, you know, I'm sure he wants to do everything, but there's only 24 hours in a day, you know. I can't really blame the guy. He's created so many awesome series, and, you know, humanly, he literally cannot keep all of them going, and realistically, it would be stupid to try to give the series to someone else, right? Like for some of the side project is fine, right? But I don't want someone else writing part 2 of the Tsukihime remake. I don't want someone else, you know, writing like the main Fate stuff, I guess. You know, give him a break. The man is probably like busy.
Whether that be Fate Grand Order, some other Fate property, and MiHoYo as I mentioned before, but all of this is purely speculation. So until then, I and many other fans will be hard coping for at least any crumbs regarding Red Garden. Those were all of the big visual novel titles, to my knowledge, that exist in limbo and will probably come out in the next decade, era, or never.
I mean, one that is more speculation on my part. I'm a massive fan of the Magicoi series, and Minato Soft as a company. You know, the VN are pretty awesome, and they really are high quality, and I love the vibe. I always said it, but the only physical visual novel I ever bought was Magicoi a couple years ago. And the main writer guy of Minato Soft, for now quite a few years, he basically moved away, and he started a manga called Mao Something Slave. It's like an HC fighting one, and it's been very popular to the point of getting multiple anime seasons, I think. And since then, basically, Minato Soft as a company has been on pause. So it's not that they announced anything per se, and there was never any, like, you know, announcement for a potential third Magicoi, or even like a different IP. But yeah, it's been years, and the company might be frozen forever. And it's sad because I love their stuff. I haven't tried every of their VN because not translated yet. But again, makes me kind of sad. Yeah, it is what it is.
Here's a fun game. Comment below to let me know which game you think will come out first. Or
So yeah, that's my take on all this. I really hope Syconia gets finished. The Tsukihime remake, I mean, you know, I just cannot wait to read it, but I don't want to read part 1 alone. Like, I want to read part 1 and 2 at once. Done. Yeah. Anyway, good stuff. Really interesting video. Really good stuff. I should subscribe to this channel maybe. I don't know all the stuff they talk about. Yeah, so it's only VN talking about, yeah. Yeah, you know what? I'll subscribe and I'll probably add more videos to later stream. Okay, that was a great one. Next, the worst anime of all time by Mother's Basement. Last time we had watched a video from him, which was the worst studio / director, I guess.
10 years is a long time to be
I think this is about Exam, the Crunchyroll funded anime.
doing anything for you. Can it, Freerin? You're not even in this video. Good thing, too, because while I stole this joke from a comment on my best of all time list, if I put her on this one, someone might legitimately kill me. I've watched a lot of great anime over the last decade, but I've definitely seen even more terrible ones. So today, in our second round of celebrations for Mother's Basement's 10th channelversary, we're gonna be ranking the absolute worst of them. A task I take, I won't say no joy in, but certainly less joy than talking about anime I love, which I'd very much like to see more of than I've seen bad ones. And that's why my best buds, Tristan, Miles, and I have started a new podcast, The Quest for the Best. Person sweet, we got anime movie Project Echo. Doobly-doo, or I've got about hate. You're not about to see something like King's Game or Garzy's Wing on here, because watching those things doesn't make me hate myself.
That's what I said before, right? I mean, people often talk about, you know, like Sword Art Online is the worst anime, or, you know, some of the generic one, like Master Destruction, right? But they're not that bad. You know, I used to have the anime YouTuber disabilities, which is having to watch everything to completion. I always talk about it, but like back in 2015-16, for like a year, I decided to watch every airing anime fully, even if I hated them, which, you know, like 2/3 of them I thought were terrible, but I didn't want to drop anything. I was still like in that phase of like, I shouldn't drop anything. And so I forced myself to watch so many animes that I hated, right, to completion. And you know, some of them are only 12 episodes, which is like nothing, but when you hate it, every minute is like torture, right? And you know, there's so many anime that I can't even name because I forget them, but they were torture to watch. You know, a few is like Active Raid, 100, I mean, stuff that probably no one even remembers, right? Stuff that, you know, had like terrible directing, terrible animation, but worst of all, like script, right? I mean, you know, just like genericness to the max, you know, stupid stories, stupid writing. But again, they're like terrible anime that are like not popular terrible anime. So yeah, thankfully after all that, so in 2017, I just, you know, totally changed my way of viewing things, and I started dropping stuff to the max. And so I would say that so far the 2020s have been great because yeah, I mean, I still give a try to every anime of every season. Like, even if there's 50 anime, I'll give a try to everyone, but I will drop like 90% of them and be happy for it because I only watched like 5 minutes of some of them, and it's enough to say they were terrible, you know. So I'm glad I'm not an anime YouTuber who kind of has to finish so many of even the bad one, right? You know.
The show is truly so bad it's good. I believe that does actually make it good in some way, or at least less bad than things that just straight up suck. In the right context, the thrill of discovering some new, previously unimaginable way that an anime or film's creators f***ed up beyond all comprehension can completely replace or even surpass any conventional entertainment value that thing loses from being objectively terrible. Number 10, Rent a Girlfriend is the polar opposite of that. An anime
I don't even remember if I watched any of it. Like, I always see people mention it, but I never remember if I watched or read any of it. Like, that's how much I don't care about it. But I see people to this day constantly talking about how bad it is, and yet still reading it. I don't know what to say about this one. Okay, so it appears I haven't touched the anime, and it appears I have not touched the manga. Okay, I don't know why I thought I did. I might be confusing it with a different one, yeah. So I've actually never touched this franchise. I just know that it's like probably the most popularly hated anime manga today, at least in the West. I mean, maybe people love it in Japan. I don't know. Yeah, but it's getting many seasons and it's been running for like 10 years, you know?
Hey, so good, it sucks. The animation and art direction, acting, and music are legitimately quite impressive, but all I can think as I drink in those luscious production values, or the manga's fantastic art for that matter, is what a colossal goddamn waste of human potential this whole cash grab harem treadmill is. Just imagine if all of this acting talent and moe craftsmanship had been poured into waifus with even a hint of likable personality. Besides Mami Nanami, of course, who is entirely valid for hating everyone else in the show, especially Kazuya, the walking twitmonger with zero redeeming qualities and even less sex appeal, whose very existence condemns everyone around him to an eternity of nothing ever happening. And because of that problem, the parts of Rent-a-Girlfriend that are unironically kinda good, like episode 1 or most of season 3, somehow end up feeling even worse, because those are the bait that pulls you into the trap and keeps you from escaping it until it's far too late. Here you are thinking, yes, it's finally paying off. Chizuru's really digging into her hopes and dreams, showing us what makes her tick. Kazuya's proven his value as a man and romantic partner. There's finally like a story with goals for the characters to work toward.
And then I assume we go back to statu quo.
Instead of shit just kind of happening because they needed 20 minutes of waifu for you to stare at. It took a while, but this anime is going somewhere, man. And then that somewhere is this.
What?
Now, I can't, in good conscience, rank Rent-a-Girlfriend lower than 10th place because, objectively speaking, it is a competently made anime that...
Again, like, all I know is that people watch it, right? I often see memes about how bad it is, but people seem to watch it, right? It's one of those things where, you know, people hate it and still they watch it, so there must be some kind of enjoyment out of it.
Mostly just sucks on a spiritual level. But let me put it this way. If you put a gun to my head and said, watch SAO now or die, I'd full dive into that shit with zero hesitation.
Sure.
It's not great, but it's dumb fun. If you did the same thing with...
I will say it, but I do still, even having rewatched it recently, I do still enjoy the first half of season 1 of SAO. Like, I genuinely still think there's a lot to enjoy. I mean, in a wish-fulfilling kind of way, right? The cool gamer guy, stuck in this world, finds a girlfriend, they have like an adopted daughter, like programming, doing cool things. You know, I still like it. I still like it a lot. But after that, I've never really cared for SAO. You know, the second arc is something. And then I think I've watched up to season 3 and couldn't care. I've actually enjoyed, well, I did enjoy a bit of like the gun one, the beginning of it. And then I enjoyed the gun spin-off with the Moe girl. I enjoyed that one somewhat. Yeah.
Rent-a-Girlfriend, though? I'd probably still watch it. I do have a lot of loved ones who I'd like to see again more than I don't want to see Kazuya. Yeah, more. Yeah. I did really have to think about it, though. I'd also really have to think about 9th place, and I like to think that when I do make my final decision, Yazzie will understand. Or she would in a hypothetical universe where a second season of The Promised Neverland got made that completely ruined everything and butchered the entire back half of the manga. She might even take the bullet with me.
I do remember what happened. was actually one of the people reading The Promised Neverland from chapter 1. It came out at a time where I was always starting the new Jump manga when they started. And yeah, it was freaking great. It was freaking great. Until, well, the end of the first arc, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, season 1, the only season, was the anime that finally convinced her yaoi and mecha-loving ass to give literally any Shonen Jump series besides Haikyuu a shot. And in that hypothetical universe, she would have developed Shonen Jump-related trust issues so severe that it would have taken her years to finally give Jujutsu Kaisen, her favorite anime and manga ever, a real shot. Luckily, we don't live in that universe. But that does mean that I do have an inexplicable blank space in 9th place on this list, which I'm now gonna have to fill by hyping you up about the worst anime I haven't finished watching yet. From the statistically worst anime director to ever do it, Yoshiteru Sato. A director who isn't a director at all, in fact, but rather the vice president of a video game company called...
We might pass this one since he's already talked about it. Yeah. He's already talked about this in the other video we watched the other day, you know?
Years and 9 months ago, I declared that the master of Ragnarok and blesser of Einherjar was the worst isekai. And I was objectively correct, but only for like 2 months. For little did I realize that the shambling husk of Studio Gonzo was about to release one of its final corpse farts in the form of a zero-effort tie-in anime for a low-effort remake of Conception, the mediocre PSP Persona knockoff in which you knocked up your social links, including your own cousin, then used your own children in battle as Pokemon.
Bro, that sounds amazing. What you're talking about, this sounds absolutely amazing.
As child abuse simulators go, the game itself is fine. I can't really think of literally any reason for a person to play it, even back in 2012 when Persona 3 Portable had already existed for an entire year. But like, there is something refreshing about an isekai that just cuts out the middleman and makes its protag save the world by fucking a bunch of random waifus, or you know, do a magic get pregnant ritual off screen with a bunch of waifus, because the dictates of console gaming basically force this to be a pseudo ecchi for cultureless cowards. At least those waifus are cute though, in the game I mean, where they were drawn by the ReZero artist, not after what Gonzo did to them.
Was it before I started with Zido, maybe?
This isn't quite the studio's ugliest anime, at least not on the outside. Tri-Nights is a thing after all. Oh, sweet Jesus, Kunin!
It's such a shame the fall of Gonzo. Recently I was thinking about the studio, like some of the early 2000 anime from Gonzo. I think Speed Graphics by then, right? I'm not wrong about that. Yeah. I was thinking about this anime that I've watched a long time ago and how weird it was, but how interesting it was. In the 2000s, they really had like quite a run, right? I mean, you know, they really did some cool stuff. I mean, Hellsing, Full Metal Panic, the first season, even though people will say, and I agree that it's not as good as what Q&A did, I still think it's really cool, right? Last Exile is really good. It's really forgotten today, and I reacted to it a couple years ago, but Last Exile is a pretty fun adventure anime, really worth watching. Chrono Crusade had dropped, so meh. But the Gans anime, I mean, it's ugly and messed up, but in a perfect way for what it is, right? So, for a great one. Gonkutsuo, I mean, insanely forgotten today. I don't see anyone talking about it, but Gonkutsuo is freaking awesome. I really want to recommend it. It's an adaptation of the classic Count of Monte Cristo story, which is about a man who wants revenge on people, but not in a normal kill them way. Basically, revenge by, you know, doing very specific thing to them that is worse than death, if you will, according to their character or something. And Gonkutsuo is also, I mean, both the story, but also in terms of like visuals, right? It's a very unique anime. I can't even describe you what the visuals are like, but I think it's fair to say that there's literally no other anime like it in terms of visuals. Then there's Speedgrapher, which is a very weird show. I think this one isn't as liked, but freaking awesome. I would recommend it as far as like something that feels very different, especially by today's standards, right? Basilisk, one of my favorites. Great ninja war anime. Oh yeah, this movie I think is a Makoto Shinkai movie. Gimi no Kami to Agito. It's fine. NHK no Yokoso, freaking amazing. They had Seto no Anayume, really good show. Afro Samurai, freaking classic. I mean, still one of the most interesting, anime projects ever, right? It's sick. I was also thinking about Afro Samurai recently. I was watching some clip on YouTube and just forgot how like unique it feels, right? And again, like was skipping a lot of stuff that I haven't seen, but yeah, again, like 2000s Gonzo was genuinely awesome. Even Strike Witches, which is like, fucking stupid, right? It's like girls in freaking like school sim shit flying around in a World War II setting. It's stupid, but it's kind of fun, But then, yeah, I guess as time passes and getting into the 2010, I'm seeing so much stuff here that I either haven't seen or isn't that great. And then these days, yeah, I mean, like, if we go like after 2015, I mean, for me, the last stuff I really liked from them was Solega Seiyu, no Kanata for Reason, and after that it's like dropped, yeah, so like I think in the last 10 years I have dropped like 7 shows from them and I have not finished one. It's so sad. Like when I think of Gonzo again, I think of like all of the incredible 2000s anime they made. Yeah, and some really unique stuff. I mean, Gankutsu is still like so insanely unique. Same thing with Afro Samurai. I mean, genuinely like some super unique projects. Yeah, anyway, just a bit of nostalgia about them. Yeah. Also, I didn't realize they had some Fullmetal Panic compilation movie or something. Interesting. I forget which studio did season 3 of Fullmetal Panic. It wasn't a great studio. Yeah.
Moves! But on the inside, I mean, take all the problems inherent to adapting just the bare-bones dating sim bits of a story designed to be carried by an entire supplementary dungeon crawler, add an excruciatingly awkward lack of chemistry with waifus who are only PG-13 boning protag-kun because it's their destiny or whatever, multiply that by the death throes of a company 3 years out from hawking NFTs just to keep the lights on, and divide it all by the number of jokes which are actually funny, and oh no, it was zero. Zero of the jokes in this harem isekai parody comedy anime are funny, and the least funny part
To you, there's some people out there who I'm sure liked it.
by far is
That's what we have all learned about the isekai, right? I said I drop about 90% of the anime every season, and I can tell you I drop about 99% of the isekai every season, as it is probably, I mean, there's a lot of genre where people might say that, but for me, I like good isekai, but I would say that today's isekai as a genre has become the most criminally, originally bankrupt genre in anime, well over like ecchi, harem, romance, even basic shonen battle stuff. I mean, the isekai genre is to the max the most bankrupt in creativity genre, yeah? Again, like 9 out of 10 are like, not just bad, they're just like, why was this even made? I don't understand how this got an anime, and I don't understand how seems like people are watching it, probably buying the Blu-ray, because this got a season 2, and this fucking vending machine one got a season 3, and this fucking trashy anime got a season 4, and this season has like 10 isekai or something. It just boils my blood. Huh? At the same time, again, like, if people like it, good for them. Like, if they're having fun and it helps them have fun in life, good for them. But, so many of them, I just watch 5 minutes of them and I just don't understand how, if this is like the very first time you see an isekai, maybe, but I have to assume it can't be with how many there are, right? So, like, I don't see why you would watch this one or this one or this one, yeah. Anyway, rant over.
Nah.
Protag-kun's horny talking raccoon wingwoman, who in all my years of professional anime enjoyment has only been surpassed in her annoyingness by one other aggravating cartoon mascot thing. She single-handedly levels up this boring, sauceless slog of an isekai into actual torture, which only gets more severe with each passing episode, though thankfully there are only 12 of those, so it could be a lot worse. It could be number 7, Deadly Sins.
Interesting choice. I think I stopped watching before it got really bad. I've heard the later season get really bad, and it's a shame because I remember really liking it. I think I've watched the first 2 seasons probably, and you know, I know people will always do like Meliodas is a creep and this and that, but you know, as a long-time anime fan, like that bothers me not at all. You know, he's far from the most, you know, disgusting anime character or anything, and I really don't mind this kind of trope that much. But the scene was pretty cool in concept. I mean, I think the early feeling of adventure was there, right? For me, the highlight of the other story was always the stuff with like the backstory of Ban and Elaine, I think was the girl he liked. I really liked that part. And again, it had some fun fights, some fun power, and a pretty fun world, you know? Yeah. I know that I've watched until this season where, like, there's that character voiced by Sugita. So it's probably season 2. Oh yeah, this guy. This looks terrible.
Now, some out there might accuse me of only ranking Nanatsu no Taizai higher than those other 3 crappy anime just so I could make that terrible joke, but rest assured, if anything, I'm putting it lower on the list than it should be just so I could make that terrible joke. If that hypothetical gunman came back right now, I would pull the trigger for him. Throughout my entire decade-long career, I have never, I mean never had less fun watching anime than I did binging this crap after you guys voted for me to roast it. Admittedly, part of that is on me. I am never watching 100 episodes of anything.
There's 100 episodes now.
In a week ever again. And to be fair, the first 20 were mid, but a very mindlessly enjoyable kind of.
It was
mid.
fun. I mean, it's been like a long time since I watched it, but again, I remember it being fun enough.
Next 15 or so were a thoroughly passable kind of mid. The 17 after that, a mind-numbing sort of mid that you push through, mostly because you vaguely remember enjoying the show once at some point many years ago, and you hope to one day get back there again. Then the 24 that follow those slowly but surely choke that hope out of you down to the very last drip, squeezing just a little harder with each passing plot beat as the lore falls apart before your eyes, and each hero's backstory in turn reveals that every single one of them is a worse monster than the last, until you can scarcely remember a time in your entire life, let alone during this binge sesh, where you ever felt anything at all, and you legitimately can't
I mean, I like this channel, but man does it bad with his script. I mean, we don't need like that long of a tirade about how bad it is.
Decide whether it's funnier to tweet 7 deadly frames or 7 deadly sex offenders. But hey, you're over the hump by that point. There's only 24 more episodes left to go, and you've invested so much time in this story already. There's got to be some kind of payoff.
I mean, frankly, I don't think I'll come back to it since I've heard it went so bad. I'm not really interested. You could say I'm interested to see it for myself. Who knows, maybe I'd like it, but I don't think so. I was already like not the biggest fan, you know. I thought it was entertaining, but you know, who knows?
Waiting for you at the end. I mean, how much worse could it possibly?
How dare you think that you can defy a mountain? Really? I blow away mountains for breakfast.
Oh, Okay, so we're just doing the entire final boss fight twice, are we? Like, repeating every plot beat in the same order, only he possesses
Man, the
a
art looks terrible.
palette-swapped version of Meliodas the second time, and you really thought we wouldn't notice what you were doing there, and then that
So
still
ugly.
wasn't enough to pad the whole anime out, so you trot out this random bonus boss we've never heard of, who just shows up to fight everyone until there's exactly 24 episodes worth of content? Holy shit, dude, you're making Reiji Miyajima look like he respects my time. After all that, it almost feels like a footnote to say that the worst mascot thing I've ever seen also happens to be in this anime. And what's really crazy is the walking power level in bed.
I don't remember the pig being bad, but I don't think mascot bothered me that much.
A joke dispenser isn't even the worst character, cause goddamn Gother exists. But speaking of insufferable
Don't
animals
remember.
and actual literal sex criminals, the 6th worst anime I've ever suffered through is My Life as Inukai-san's.
It's, I don't know, I wouldn't put it in a list. Like, it's too, like, it's bad in the sense of, like, if you're not into the fetish or something, right? So it doesn't feel like it's clearly good for people into it. So it's like, I don't know if it fits in a list like this.
Dog. The anime about a teenage virgin who inexplicably turns into a puppy, then gets adopted by his
I'm
hot
not into it, by the way.
classmate, who turns out to like dogs a little too much. Now,
I probably like the, I'll show you my panties while making a disgusted face a lot more than this.
you might hear all that and assume that the core problem with Inukai-san's dog is that it's an anime which aired on television somehow about a teenage girl really wanting to f her dog. And that is part of it, a big part even. But the bigger problem is the complete and utter lack of literally anything else. Here we have a chilling sci-fi setting in which someone out
Are those like 24-minute episodes? I don't even know. I don't think I've seen this. I think I've seen clips. This feels like the kind of show that would be like 5 minutes or something.
there has figured out how to manipulate the human genome and turn people into animals against their will, and yet every line of every scene of every episode is just about dog f***ing. There is not a single problem in the Inukai-verse
maybe it's really
that
bad.
cannot be solved by f***ing a dog. Bored and lonely? F*** a dog. Miss your childhood friend who turned into a dog? Obviously you gotta go f*** that dog. Scared of dogs? F*** a dog. You'll get right over it.
Is he joking or do they actually do that?
Even when the mysterious masterminds behind the scenes finally tip their hand, revealing the full extent of their sinister conspiracy, just take a wild guess what the cure for being turned into a dog is. It's easy to dismiss Inukai as basically just a hentai that got on TV somehow, but frankly, sir, that is an insult to hentai. Hentai has plots, characters, lore, high-concept geopolitics, magic
which one?
systems that are fueled by fucking many different things.
It's art.
This is mindless gooner slop of the lowest order. And to see the difference, you need...
Which again is why I don't think it fits on a list like this, because, I don't know. Like, I feel like it's a different level, what you would call good or slop, right? It's like, it's a different type of bad, right? I don't know.
look no further than last season's much better anime about an elf who really wants to f her cat. Or you can just watch The Last Hottest Trash if that's too cultured for you to handle.
I like the cat
All of
design,
this
though.
begs the question, we're only halfway down this list. What could possibly be worse than Inukai? You'll find out in just a sec after this word from our sponsor, Zenless Zone Zero.
I'll pass. I have stopped playing the game.
Literally ruin people, the horrors we just witnessed. How about an anime made to literally ruin people's lives? Or heck, why
Okay.
not? 10 of them.
I'm Helen Keller. What?
Now, we had our fun in this basement
Happy Science
mocking the
Collection.
Happy Science movies and the man who made them, Ryuho Okawa, who's dead now.
Is this like one of those cult anime? Like made by a literal cult?
God is dead! God is dead!
Or if you listen to his worthless grifter kids, he's in a deep spiritual trance from which he will one day awaken and usher in a new golden age for humanity just as soon as his supporters have raised enough millions of dollars. And hey, whatever he's got going on, it hasn't stopped him from executive producing a brand new anime due out this very month, which you better believe I'm making some content out of as soon as it's translated, just for the chance to dance on his grave one more time. And when I do, I hope that his family sees it and it really hurts their feelings. Because, and this is something that can be lost in all the fun making of those roast videos, these are propaganda pieces designed to literally brainwash children. The other anime on this list may be bad, but these ones are actually evil. Of course, I'm not ranking anime on their moral standing, but technical and artistic merits, and in those respects, Happy Science's output is fine, certainly better produced than what American cultists use to brainwash their kids, and most seasonal isekai for that matter. It's the movie's stories, for the most part, that merit all the mockery, as they oscillate between being batshit insane.
You know, my question now is like, has there ever been a cult that had made a good anime movie?
And just insanely boring. And the boringest of the bunch by far is The Golden Laws. You know, the one with the kids in the time machine going to learn a bunch of lies about religious figures throughout history, which also happens to be the ugliest of those movies since it was made in that awkward transitional period between traditional and digital animation by a studio so far past their prime they were taking work from cults just to keep the lights on, which I don't know if that's worse or better than NFTs, or maybe it's the exact same. Anyway, if I had to pick just one of these movies as the absolute worst to represent them all, I guess it'd be that one. And that one is just bad enough to come in at number 5, because for as many people as these films and the organization behind them have hurt over the years, they've never hurt me personally. Unlike an anime that we'll get to in just one sec. But first, I need to clarify something. My best anime ever list was not just my top 10 favorites, despite what some people think. It was an honest attempt to compile and rank the 10 best made anime that I've ever seen, which is still a matter of personal taste in the end in terms of like what I value most in anime production. Clearly, I prize visual storytelling and animation quality over a lot of other things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that my picks were just the most Jeff Core anime possible. For example, on a favorites list, instead of Cowboy Bebop, I would have expressed my love for peak 90s cell animated sci-fi with Irresponsible Captain Tyler, which, if you haven't seen, one of...
But I wouldn't put it above Cowboy Bebop, yeah? Like, I actually watched that a year or two ago. I enjoyed it, but I can already feel like I don't remember much of what happens in every episode compared to Bebop, you know?
The best retrospectives I've ever made, low-key, is this goofy space opera about basically a horny Mr. Bean captaining the starship Enterprise in a war with sexy space elves. It's amazing, but it's also frustratingly incomplete, especially compared to Bebop. Tyler's anime never got to adapting even half of all the light novels, leaving massive questions hanging as to the ultimate fate of its world and characters, and even...
Most anime, I mean, the say thumbs up, only a partial adaptation. The bane of this medium, which, as I always say, things have gotten better. So far, the 2020s have actually been a ray of light in that way. So many things actually getting more seasons to sometime completion.
And how the war shook out. So you can probably imagine my insane levels of excitement when I heard they were finally making a sequel slash spin-off starring the kids of the characters, which lasted until I saw exactly the first frame.
Yeah, this looks ugly as hell. Obviously you couldn't expect it to look as good as those, you know, 90s anime, but come on.
Of Irresponsible Galaxy, Tyler.
Ow. Pain pickle.
That was quite possibly the worst thing that has ever happened to me personally. And my dad is dead. Plenty of fandoms have been kicked in the teeth by anime studios over the years, but this was like being curb stomped repeatedly. Then they take the boot with your teeth embedded in it and put their full weight.
I mean, I was just thinking, like, what is probably the most popular worst example of something like this? One Punch Man season 1 to 2, then to 3, right? I mean, 2 was already like such a step down, but people were almost willing to like be like, you know, okay, it's not great, but it's still passable. And then 3 happened. This probably is the biggest fall from grace ever, right? As One Punch Man Season 1 still like one of the best animated looking TV anime ever, right? You know, and Season 1 to 3 all happened within 10 years or something. About 10 years, yeah. Well, this, at least I can say that, you know, like 30 years passed.
Directly on your balls. Though, as bad as Galaxy Tyler is, at least the whole thing's over in less than half an hour, and the pain it induces is only emotional.
So it's just
All of
another
the anime on this list are ones I'd call hard to...
Studio Gohan's, the Goats. I forgot about this. Handshakers, I think it was called, yeah.
watch in one way or another, but nowhere is that description more apt than with number 3, Handshakers.
Back when this came out, I think this might have been the first one where they did it in this insane style, which I won't even attempt to describe. If you've ever checked out some modern Gohan's anime, you know what I mean. Except that one cat one, it was a lot more normal, for the most part. I have a morbid fascination with this studio, and they're absolutely insane. And I feel like, you know, they have something with their style. There is potential. If it was real, then, you know, like, it clearly has potential to be good. They have insane talent for some of the stuff they do, but it's also just, you know, like, this is the limit of what they should do, and they just go all the way up. There's no one telling them, reel that in, reel that in.
The only anime I know of with the power to literally, no hyperbole, make a person physically ill. Not due to any gross, weird stuff in the story. Well, not just that.
弟のこと愛してるって変かしらね。
Mostly it's the motion sickness that does it. See, over at Studio Gohan's, they direct their anime a little differently. Where other studios might zig, they zag, then zag again, then do a little loop-de-loop, ollie into a wall ride, into a front-side manual, and cap it all off with a 360 note.
What I hate is that it looks terrible and amazing at the same time, right? On one side, it's clearly like too much, right? But on the other side, it's like, man, the amount of effort for just a sequence like this, you know, if it was directed in a much more like, again, reeled in way, this could look incredible.
Scope. And that's just to show a guy walking down a hall. Wait till you see their action scenes. But, maybe take a Gravol before you do. I have seen these motherfuckers, honest to Haruhi, put the camera inside the floor just because they can. And the reason they can is thanks to the experimental digital hybrid over animation style that they completely failed to implement in Handshakers. With
Yeah, again, Handshakers was like, I think the first one they did this, and oh, what did I do? It was notoriously like terrible, right? But I think they've been doing better recently. I'm not saying doing great, but yeah, it was 2017, almost 10 years ago, right? Yeah, I dropped it episode 1. But have they done anything good since? I think I like the cat one again. Oh yeah, this one. Deku Neko Wakyo Mo Yutsu. This one is actually good. I actually would say it's good. It still has moments of going crazy with maybe a bit too much on the directing side, but since it's a slice of life about like this office woman living with like a giant cat, and you know, it's just the cat like taking care of daily chores and being nice, you know, it's a lot more slice of life, and they actually reel in the craziness, and it's a lot more watchable while also being actually kind of fresh, right? I mean, you know, it's a slice of life, so it's pretty chill, but because of their crazy, you know, style, there's a lot of it that feels fresh. But yeah, I think that's the one I've actually liked from them. Oh no, actually I forgot about this, the Glass Girl one. This one was also a good adaptation, yeah. Though a bit more crazy. And then, yeah, I think they have one right now that's saying right now that people are like saying is also like back to just the insane bullshit. This one, the Exile Every Night or whatever. Yeah. Again, like, this studio is really something because no one else has like this insane style that they have, and I feel like personally looking at it, it could be good if they just like have someone that, you know, is willing to like tone it down by at least 50% and direct things a lot more logically, but they don't. They clearly just let people do whatever they want, and it ends up being too much. That's the problem, right? That's the problem. But yeah, Deku Neko is actually good. I mean, yeah. If you like Slice of Life, it's actually good. I wonder if it's because maybe it has a different director or something. I don't know.
Vomit shaded color grading, non-existent compositing, wildly inconsistent asset scaling, and its 3D and 2D frame rates dizzyingly out of sync with each other, handshakers clipped into the floor and ragdolled into the sun, so its many younger sister series could one day drunkenly stumble out of a bar and almost make it down all the stairs. And impressively, the show's story is even harder to follow than that action, unless you've seen Fate, in which case it's literally just Fate. The whole plot's a Grail war with the serial numbers filed off, except instead of historical heroes, the wizards end up teaming up with submissive little bondage pets, amnesiac child brides, their sisters that they're boning, and other such things. Also, they charge their powers up in an even lewder way than the original Fate hentai games.
その力はどこから来るのか。
But as god-awful as the CGI is, and as baffling as the story can be, both sides of Handshakers could still be a lot worse. And you'll see exactly how much as we finally crown the absolute worst anime of all time. Which may sound premature, since if you can count, you know there are two numbers below 3. However, I just cannot decide which of my bottom two is truly worse than the other, and X-Arm and Gibiate had so much in common, I figure we may as well just talk about them both at
Gibiate I don't know, X-Arm I know about it.
At the same time and try to figure that out together. On the one hand, we've got a bunch of film industry assholes who stumbled drunkenly into an anime studio one day, boldly declared that they were going to create a new kind of action never before seen in the medium with their elite live-action directing skills.
Berserk 2016 looks better than that.
Furthermore, went on to declare war on literally all of science fiction around the entire planet with their adaptation of a middling Ghost in the Shell knockoff, and then it looked like this.
I mean, it's a good looking anime for something that came out in 1995, huh? Or it came out in the late 2010s, okay, I see.
On the other hand, we're forced to watch in very, very slow real time as the infinite possibility of an original anime story is utterly squandered by a screenwriter with negative talent, while a team of elite Japanese artisans whom the entire project was supposedly made to celebrate have their swords and dolls and character designs utterly butchered beyond recognition by the studio that would one day give us In Another World for a second time, and somehow that was an improvement? Actually, it's not a mystery how that happened. The Nepo Baby screenwriter is also the lead producer, and he is equally skilled in that role.
Okay. Oh, this is so bad. Okay, I might have to watch this.
It's honestly impossible to decide which of these to hate more. It's apples to oranges, or like projectile vomit to projectile diarrhea. And the fact that they were both in production at the same time, for the same platform, under the same branding, does leave me feeling a little tempted to just give the entire top slot to Crunchyroll Originals as the norovirus of anime and call it a day. But as clever as that insult is, and as much as I'd like to make space to hate on Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammers anime again, it just...
That's bad? I know the manga is a classic.
Wouldn't be fair to all the other legitimately good shows that came out of the program, or even the mediocre ones, frankly. So we gotta pick one, and that's ultimately a choice between an anime that does basically everything terribly versus one that's a bit more of a mixed bag, but does one specific thing worse than literally anything else in history.
Okay.
X-Arm is at least built around the skeleton of a competent story. The manga's best quality by far is its highly detailed Gunnar core art, but it also has, if not great characters, then at least appealing character archetypes, plus
Man, there's something about this
it's a
3D.
comprehensible story with a beginning, middle, and end, which you might say is a low bar to clear, but tell that to Gibiate. I don't see X-Arm being anyone's favorite manga, but it's certainly the sort of thing I can see having fans who would be excited for an anime. And of course, the flip side of the manga's quality is the same problem that Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer and that anime that doesn't exist in 9th place have. That decent story has been done dirty by a terrible adaptation, which forever precludes the possibility of a better one existing. And obviously, X-Arm's story is nowhere near on the level of The Promised Neverland or a Satoshi Mizukami manga, but on the flip side, neither of those anime did their source material anywhere near this dirty. I mean, Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer didn't, because, you know, The Promised Neverland couldn't have, because it never had a second season. Point is, as manga adaptations go, X-Arm was done the dirtiest ever.
I see. It's insane how bad this look. I mean, again, I have no idea of the behind the scenes story of this whole thing. I know it was a Crunchyroll production, maybe mostly a Western production, so potentially a ton of inexperienced people, maybe no budget, I don't know, but even then, there's like single artists not even being paid on YouTube that make better looking animation than this. I mean, I don't understand how this is even a thing.
It's got all the problems you'd expect to see in a live-action director's debut anime. Storyboards hopelessly constrained by the limits of reality and the fundamental misunderstanding of how to time animation, chief among them, compounded by the show using the most difficult animation process to get right, further compounded by a team of film and game industry dudes who know even less about 3D CG anime than most 2D animators, and if that's not enough compounding for you,
I mean, I could give a bit of a break that, actually good, generally, like, consistently, all the way through, good-looking 3D anime, have really become a thing now in the 2020s, right? Like, 3D had been used for, different things over the last few decades, right? Recently I watched the very first time, I think, 3D was used in an anime, which was 1981 or 3, Gold Ghost 13, the classic sniper assassin story, and the opening is like this kind of ugly 3D skeleton shooting guns and all that, but I think it was supposed to be the very first time. It was in an OVA, 3D was used, and over the years there was a lot of interesting 3D, like recently I was watching some Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex from the very early 2000s, and I'm always surprised at good the 3D looks in that. It's kind of crazy because it's 25 years ago, right? And even in the early 2010, I remember watching stuff like Ajin and still thinking, like, it's watchable, but it's still kind of ugly. But now, in the 2020s, I mean, stuff like the Bang Dreams anime and the Girls Won't Cry anime, I mean, Girls Won't Cry might be the best looking TV 3D anime we've ever gotten, if I'm not forgetting something top of my head. Like, it's insane how consistent that one is, in terms of looking good. Yeah.
They made it at the height of COVID on a Crunchyroll Originals budget. X-Arm is, by a massive margin, the worst rigged, modeled, and animated 3D CG I have ever seen on television, and I grew up on Monster by mistake. But speaking of monsters and mistakes, the monsters in Gibiate do almost give X-Arm a run for its terrible CGI money in the little but still way too much time they spend on screen. screen, and that is just the tip of
Look
a
at this.
gargantuan shitberg. The show's 2D animation and art direction is equally atrocious, taking Yoshi...
I feel like I recognize the artist. Isn't this the artist of stuff like Vampire Hunter and Highlander, that fun anime movie and all that?
Taka Amano's distinctive character designs and simplifying...
Is that saying Yoshitaka Amano? Yoshitaka Amano. Yeah, I wasn't crazy. This is the artist of Angel's Egg, Vampire Thunder, Amon Saga, stuff like that. I wasn't crazy. Crazy good artist, obviously. Yeah. Why did I think he was also the artist for Highlander? Which is a movie I watched recently. It's not even listed here. Maybe it's just the same studio or something. There's also character design for a character in this. I don't even remember watching this. I dropped episode 1, so...
them in a way that doesn't actually make them any easier to animate while still robbing them of all their charm. Not a single one of the characters behind those designs is remotely likable. The story is borderline incomprehensible, and the backstory / lore is legitimately some of the stupidest shit I've ever heard in my life. Ghibli is an anime with infinite shortcomings and zero redeeming qualities, which probably should make it the cut and dry winner or loser of this competition, but it's facing off against a show that comes up so short in one specific area that I'm not sure any other quality could redeem it, and X-Arm doesn't have a lot of qualities to begin with, especially not when the story gets into anime original territory. At the end of the day, they're both fundamentally unwatchable 0 out of 10 shows, either of which could proudly wear this crown. But when I imagine that gun to my head, the thought of watching Ghibli again does make me want to die just a little bit more, so I guess that's the worst one. But I would love to hear your opinion.
Which is a good question, like, what's my opinion? I don't even remember, like, what show I have rated 1 or 2 out of 10 on my anime list. So let's actually take a look. I guess that's the easiest way. I feel like it's been a long time since I've actually given a score like that to anything. Mainly because, again, for the last 8-9 years I've switched the way I watch anime, and, you know, I don't actually really rate the stuff I drop if I only watch 1 episode or something. If I were to watch more than that, I would. But I wonder what I've rated 1 and 2. So let's try to find out. Score. I need to go down, okay. I only have 1. Oh yeah, okay. I guess Berserk 2016 is the only one I ever gave a 1 out of 10. I think it's simply because of how offensive it is that something like Berserk would get something so trash as an adaptation, right? I mean, literally like one, if not the most legendary manga, and, you know, the fact that this is what it got is just so insulting to the legacy of it, to Kentaro Morita, to the fan. You know, technically there's still some good aspect. I'm pretty sure the music is great. I think it's Shiro Sagisu doing it, so of course it's great. But let me check, I'm pretty sure. Shiro Sagi... no. No, music... Yeah, Sagisu Shiro. I was right. So like, that's definitely like, you know, the best thing about it, the freaking music. Like, music is awesome. But yeah. Otherwise I've got this. Let's take a look at all of my 2 out of 10. Which all of them are basically 1 out of 10 if you want. I actually have a lot more than I remember, but most of this, it's been a long time since I ever thought about the existence. So we have Tank Squad 1. I remember that, yeah. It's, this is horrendous to the absolute max. Actually, this might be worse than X-Arm. Though at the same time, this came out like 20 years ago, so it gets a pass in comparison. I love Dominion. Dominion is a Shiro Masamune manga, the author of Ghost in the Shell, and there was some awesome OVAs from the 90s. It's about like a kind of futuristic police / a bit cyberpunk setting, getting into different cases. A lot of fun characters, pretty well animated. They're 80s OVA, so they're great. But yeah, 20 years later, in 2006, they tried to make a single 29-minute OVA, kind of sequel or reboot or something. Except it's the ugliest thing you've ever seen. This generally looks worse than X-Arm. It's in 3D, full 3D, and I cried just thinking about it. So yeah, that's one of them. Blood Sea Special Edition, I don't remember this. Oh, I think they're just like recap episodes, which is like, I don't know why I even watched them or rated them, because what's the point of recap episode? I must have been really mad about recap episode. I literally don't remember. I mean, I watched this like well over a decade ago. Yeah. Tenshi no Drop. I don't remember this. Oh, it was a single 5-minute episode. I don't even remember this. I mean, it was 5 minutes, so yeah. What do you want from me? Akakill Gekijo. An Akamega Kill 1-minute short special episode. 2014, yeah, 12 years ago, I don't remember. It was probably just boring. Like, not funny or something. Tokyo Season 2, I think that's what it is. I also don't remember much from it. This was 11 years ago. I just remember thinking Season 1 was kind of cool and Season 2 was just bad. But right now, after all this time, I can't even tell you why. So it's like, if I rewatched it now, I assume it wouldn't be that bad. In a sense of like, I don't feel that strongly about it, but I must have felt pretty strongly about it back then. But I just don't even remember what happens or why it's so bad, Active Raid, I talked about it, yeah, this was kind of a really shitty, like, mecha police anime, I guess. But plot, character, and anime was pretty ugly, is what I remember. Yeah, 2016. This was during the time where I was forcing myself to finish some of these shows, so I think I had like stronger opinion because I was literally forcing myself to finish it, even if I hated it, Masugakuen XH. I think this is like a trashy ecchi, and I do like ecchi anime, but this is just a trashy one. Though again, I don't even remember anything about it now. Big Order, I remember. Yeah, it was a trashy 10-episode anime. I think it was some kind of battle royale thing. But yeah, I think it was terrible, but I don't remember why. Yeah. Active Raid Season 2. Why did I even watch it? I don't remember. I've never heard of this. Which, no, I did finish this, but I don't even remember the name of this. Cerberus. I don't recognize the car design. 2016, yeah. That was during that time where I was forcing myself to watch it. I literally cannot tell you a single thing about this. I have zero image in my head popping up. Onigiri. Cute anime girl, so why did I hate this? 2-minute episode. I see. It was probably very vapid, yeah. Android, I remember. It was pretty terrible show, and I think it had like a terrible run where like, the production was so bad that it had some break and they had to like air the final episode later or something. I think it was some shitty action story, but can't remember anything. Crane Game Girl. I don't remember this. 4-minute episode, yeah. I don't remember. Lagna Strike Angel. I kind of remember this. Oh yes, 30-second episode. I think it was just a giantess fetish thing. Yeah. Scared Riders, Xek. It's crazy because again, like, I don't have a single image popping up in my head. Like, I'm sure I watched it because I listed it on my anime list, and back then I was accurate for sure. I mean, I'm still accurate today, but not a single thing pops up in my head. And yet I thought it was so bad that I gave it a 2, so it's interesting. In the end, yeah, like the only #1 bad anime for me is Berserk 2016, simply because I feel personally attacked as a fan that they made something that bad or something so legendary, Mao Shoujo Naria Girls. 8-minute episode. And the last one is... Oh yeah, Gundam Twilight Axis. I think it was a bunch of 3-minute episodes. I just remember it being stupid, like Gundam in 3-minute episode is just... What's the point? That's what I remember feeling about it. Yeah. Okay, well... So in the end, for me, I guess the answer is simple. Berserk 2016, simply because, again, it's not just bad, it's insulting, because I'm a fan of the original. I guess a lot of the bad stuff I don't care that much, since, you know, I had no stake in it, but with Berserk I'm a massive fan, so yeah. Again, like, the only good decision for Berserk 2016 was probably Shirose Gisu for the music, and from what I remember the voice actor choice wasn't bad, but everything else was. Yeah. Anyway, I'll take a break before we watch the next video. Give me 5 minutes, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry for the wait. Okay, let's continue with the videos. Next, we have a bit of a short one from Leon John. We usually watch him on videos about like celebrities in Japan, but this one is a topic about Akihabara. Is Akihabara actually over? Let's learn about the history of it.
Are the rumors true? Is it really all over? Is the sacred otaku haven known as Akihabara done for? Well, let's talk about it.
なんすかそれは許せないと思いますこれ
At some point
Okay.
early on in my otaku life, I learned about a wondrous place in Tokyo, Japan, where you were free to be your otaku self. A place where, among other things, you could buy all the latest doujinshi, all the latest eroge, and all the latest figures. Being from the UK, where no place like this existed, I dreamed about visiting this haven for otaku where I felt I could finally be free.
Same, I'm still dreaming about it, so if you tell me that this thing is gonna be dead by the time I get there, within the next 10-20 years, I'm gonna be sad.
That place, of course, was Akihabara. And I did go numerous times during my trips to Japan, and even more so once I finally moved here many moons ago. But, like many others, I started to notice something weird happening to Akiba. It started to feel less like a place for otaku into particular niches, and well, different. Before we start to get into that though, let's go back a bit and take a look at the actual history of Akihabara, which turns out to be a lot more interesting than one might have thought. During the Edo period, the area that would come to be known as Akihabara was actually home to craftsmen, tradesmen, and lower-class samurai. This was a period where fires frequently broke out, including in that area, leading to the construction of a shrine called Chinkasha, with the hope it would help prevent future fires. Chinkasha would eventually come to be called Akibasha or Akiba Shrine, as it was believed this shrine was home to the deity of fire prevention Akiba Daigongen, and long story short, this is linked as to why the area would come to be called Akihabara. This is also said to be why
Interesting.
Akihabara is sometimes referred to as Akiba. Akihabara Station would be completed in 1890, initially used as a freight terminal linked to Ueno Station before being opened to passenger traffic in 1925. Because of this, around Akihabara Station, a number of merchants would start selling their wares such as fruit and vegetables. After the war though, as Tokyo lay in ruins, around the station a black market started to form. Yep, I bet you didn't know that one. During that time,
I didn't, but I'm not surprised.
there was just a lack of supplies, so a number of merchants used routes that the government didn't approve of
Yeah.
to bring into the market things such as food, clothes, and other daily necessities. But amazingly, it's actually through this black market that Akihabara would start on its trajectory to being the place for otaku.
メイドって言ったら、まあ、秋葉のアイドルみたいなもんですからね。それはちょっとね、世間は許してくれませんよ。
You see, close to that area, there was a technical college that would eventually end up being Tokyo Denki University. Students would come to the black market, buy radio parts, and sell completed radios as a part-time gig. This proved to be a very lucrative business, as radio was hugely popular in Japan, since it offered much-needed entertainment for many during the post-war period. It would also prove beneficial for all the engineers and mechanics that found themselves out of work after the war, and as a result, many street vendors selling electrical parts showed up in Akihabara. However,
sense.
the US Army GHQ, who were essentially ruling Japan at that time, wanted the roads to be expanded, so they put out an order to get rid of the street vendors. To keep a long story short, after protests and some negotiating, those businesses would be provided spaces around Akihabara Station to conduct their business. One of those places was actually Radio Kaikan, which I'm sure many of you recognize. More and more vendors selling electrical parts would open up in close proximity to each other within those areas, creating that Akihabara vibe that many of us would become familiar with. From
Yeah, I know even today, I mean, it's never really changed, right? It's very otaku, but there's still like a ton of technology shop, basically. One time I watched a video by the channel Tokyo Lens about this old man who was finally closing shop after like 50 years or something, and he had this tiny shop where he had to literally crawl into his shop with a ton of like, you know, little technological thing, you know, like batteries, PSN parts of like different, you know, TV, radio, remote, whatever you want.
From the 50s onwards, as the country saw rapid economic growth, Japan saw a surge in popularity for electrical appliances such as TVs, washing machines, and freezers. This is essentially what turned Akihabara into the quote-unquote electric town, the place to be to get your hands on the latest electrical goods. This would expand to PC and PC parts in the late 70s and 80s as Japan would experience what is now dubbed as the microcomputer boom. As a result, by the 90s, Akihabara did have a lot of what I guess you could call technology otaku, but it's also during this period that the change into the Akihabara that many of us recognize would start to happen. At some point, some business owners started to recognize that Akihabara was the perfect place to sell something else other than electrical goods. Yep, that something else was anime-related goods and video games. One theory is that the immense popularity of Evangelion, which started airing in Japan in 1995, is what helped spur the idea that those into things like anime would make great customers to target. And boy, they were right. In the late 90s, there were even news articles that were about quote-unquote otaku business and how otaku were actually helping the economy. So even though Akihabara did turn into a comfortable place for otaku, who at the time were not being viewed very well in general within Japanese society, there was a strong financial motivation behind this movement. Particular niches were recognized along with their customer base, and businesses were formed to fulfill those customers' needs. In the 2000s, with maid cafes entering into the fray and shops casually selling things like trading cards,
one anime that's not exactly, well, there's actually two things I could recommend that's not fully exactly about Akihabara itself, but more like early otaku culture. One of them is the Otaku no Video OVAs from the, I think the late 80s or maybe 90s, which are a mix of like, you know, documentary slash parody. I mean, they're pretty interesting. And then the Genshiken anime or manga, which is about otaku culture in the 90s and early 2000s, which are pretty good look into all this.
Figures, bishoujo games, and adult doujinshi, it really was heaven for many different types of otaku into particular niches. Akihabara had sort of become the center point for the otaku subculture in Japan. With many like-minded people getting together in one place, you could be completely free to enjoy your hobbies out in the open and even make friends too. So, what exactly changed then? Well, there are a number of factors we need to consider. One of them, which is often touted, is how a global spotlight started to shine on Akihabara as anime started to become hugely popular.
I'm sure it gets literally like I was expecting it. It's gonna be the same generic answer that ends up being the same in every little corner of media. It got popular, and so things changed by, you know, more people being into it. Recently we were watching like a video about anime convention, which went the exact same way, right? So, talking about it used to be more niche and there was more camaraderie, but now it's so popular that, you know, there's a lot more problem and problematic people, and you don't feel the camaraderie as much or something.
Popular worldwide. The number of overseas tourists that came to visit the area greatly increased, but what many casual anime tourist fans would find was not exactly child-friendly stuff. As a result, we started to see a shift from products and spaces for specific types of otaku to shops and services that catered more to these overseas tourists. However, that's not all. A pretty big factor we must consider is that the buying habits of local otaku just changed. I mentioned in my video on Momoi Haruko that she started frequently going to Akihabara because she could buy the latest issue of the gaming magazine Famitsu before anyone else. But in the age of the internet, the advantage of buying things directly from shops in Akihabara started to wane.
I mean, personally, I feel like, you know, if I lived next to a shop that had stuff like this, or if I lived next to Akihabara, I would definitely, you know, go browse stuff for the fun of it. Though, obviously, there's always the difference of like, if the same thing is like a lot cheaper online, makes it less interesting. But again, as a fan of the culture, I can only imagine the fun of browsing the shop, not knowing what you're gonna see and find.
Some would even go into a shop to say take a look at the figure they wanted to purchase, then buy it online where they could find it for slightly cheaper. And of course, the biggest factor that would push online buying habits would be the pandemic. I actually went to Akihabara during this time, and it really was desolate. The lively, active vibe of Akihabara had completely vanished. This, along with a surge in utility and energy costs, hit a lot of businesses really hard, and as a result, we would see the closure of many stores, including a few famous ones. Something else that many, including myself, started to notice is how seedy Akihabara started to become, especially at night. Many themed cafes known as Koncafe, posing to be legit businesses, started popping up. But in reality, these places were actually ripping off customers. Apparently, there were efforts by the police to crack down on these places, but to a somewhat limited success. Not only that, some of these quote-unquote themed cafes were offering other services that were more than just girls going moe moe kyun. It turns out that behind a lot of these establishments...
Kusei! What is Kusei doing here? Seriously.
Were some pretty shady characters that came from other parts of Tokyo, like Kabukicho and Shinjuku, who sought to take advantage of Akihabara's shop closures and the needs of guys looking for direct communication during that tough period. All this just further discouraged a lot of local otaku from going to Akihabara. Regardless where you put the focus on, Akihabara has changed, and with redevelopment plans given the go-ahead, we're going to see even more changes in the near future. But just like I've been talking about throughout this whole video, Akihabara has always gone through changes, so this is not something really new.
Like everything, yeah.
Personally speaking though, I really liked the subcultural vibe of Akihabara as being able to discover a whole new world that I knew nothing about. Deep down, that 2000s, early 2010s Akihabara was honestly the best period to me. However, I know there are a myriad of opinions about this topic, so please feel free to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below.
I mean, everything changed, and if you were in something at a certain time, you generally don't like the change that is now. That's the same for everybody about so many things, right? The classic things were better back in my day, which, you know, usually people meme on old people saying that, but even young people do that a lot these days, right? Again, like recently we watched an anime convention video, especially about the US, and some of the sentiment was the same, right? Things were better back in the day because less people, smaller community, and, you know, less trouble, I guess, or something. And then you can just apply the same logic and the same argument to so many different things, you know? Okay, well, a bit of a short video, which is what Neon John does, but eventually I'd like to find a deeper documentary about Akihabara, like a way deeper one. Akihabara documentary to watch, so maybe one day we'll do that, yeah? Like one that goes really, really deep. Yeah. I'll see what I can find. Okay. Nice short video. Next we have a gaming video about a game that I know about, but I've never played, and I wanted to know if it was good. Ragnarok Online, a nostalgic MMORPG. Retrospective by Arlun Grimm. We had watched video about Fantasy Star Online, and again, I want to learn more about classic Japanese MMO. I know the name Ragnarok Online, but I know nothing more than that.
If you would ask me what my favorite game of all time is, I would probably tell you it's a little old MMORPG called Ragnarok Online. Yes, I'm old. Released back in 2002 or 3 depending where you're from, this game would be the reason why gaming would be a huge part of my life and why I was failing at school. In the world of MMORPGs back in the day, the West had games like World of Warcraft, while here in the East, we had Ragnarok Online, and many more actually. It was developed by a studio called Gravity Interactive, but instead of publishing it themselves, instead sold the right to publish the games to other companies depending on the country. They would sell them patches and updates for the game.
Which, as we learned so many times, is not a great thing to do. And I think these days more companies know that and try to, you know, self-publish in every country by creating a branch in another country.
Game, a unique method of doing things that would bite them in the ass, but ultimately be profitable for them. Although it would come with its own slew of issues, and believe me, there were a ton of issues, especially during launch. Despite this, the game did release to critical success, at least in my country. Everyone was playing it. Net cafes would be filled to the brim with Ragnarok Online players, and at school, it's all people talked about. they would talk strategies, the levels they've reached while grinding over the weekend, rare item drops, and the occasional begging for Zenny, the in-game currency. Suffice to say, the game was extremely popular in the East. I myself have put at least 10,000 hours into the game, but with some caveats. We'll get into that later on.
Crazy amount. I always say it, but the game I've played the most is Mountain Blade Warband, and I guess the mods and expansion of that one, and I've only got like 1,500 hours or something between when I played Cracked and when I bought it. Never played any other game. Like there's like 2 or 3 other games that I might have over 1,000 hours, though those one I can't verify. But that's it, yeah. Like no game I ever played more than 1,000 hours.
Now, despite the game being a paid subscription model, they actually did something that is quite genius. In some countries, they offered time cards in very cheap prices that would be affordable even to kids, with the cheapest one being up to 10 cents for an hour of gameplay, to $1 for 8 hours of gameplay, and even up to $5 for a month of gameplay. This is actually pretty smart because as a kid, I would just spend my allowance on time cards in order to play RO in addition to the net cafe costs. This means I didn't even need to ask my parents about borrowing their credit card in order to pay for a subscription or anything like that. I could just pop in my local convenience store, use my allowance to buy a time card, and pay for the subscription for how many hours I would be playing. Pretty genius if you think about it. And this method of paying subscription would attract a lot of kids that didn't need to ask their parents for anything, and they would be able to play Ragnarok online. But just what is it about Ragnarok that made it stand out from the rest of its competitors at the time? Good gameplay? Well, it was decent for the time, but not really stand out as it was very similar to other games at the time. Good graphics? Yes, actually. That is one thing. The sprite work is actually insanely good, as while other games focused on 3D graphics and trying to make that look good, RO focused on 2D sprites in a 3D environment, ensuring that it looks good and ages well. And to be honest, it still looks good today. Is that what made it better than other MMOs though? Not really. Perhaps it was the story. Not exactly. In fact, if you ask any Ragnarok player what the story of the game is, I guarantee that most RO players will tell you that there isn't really a story. While there is lore, there isn't really a personal story that binds your character to the world itself or any personal story.
Yeah, it looks crazy, this tiny menu with all this bullshit.
Matter. You simply get dropped into the world and you grind monsters for levels and gear. That's pretty much it. No, the most standout thing of Ragnarok at the time...
Like, I don't like it's clearly like a, you know, your stats menu, right? But it looks like a Windows window out of the game, right? It doesn't have like a UI that feels part of the game. It's kind of ugly.
Was the social aspect of the game. Now, while all MMOs have a social aspect to it, especially back in 2003, Ragnarok 2 would stand out in this aspect, as many of the game's content was significantly easier with a party. And believe me, back in the day, Ragnarok was not easy. Dying in the game would incur XP penalties, reviving doesn't regenerate your HP and SP, which means you would have to sit idle for a while to regenerate. Potions were expensive, and the worst part is XP rates were abysmal, so gathering a party eases all of that. That said though, the difficulty and the grind of the game isn't just part of the game. You could even say that it is the game itself. Unlike today's games where the end game is where everything is at, back in the days of RO, the journey was the game itself.
Sounds like
leveling from level...
RuneScape, I think. People often recommend that game as like the ultimate grinding game. And I think a lot of old MMO are kind of like this. People played it either for like co-op or just for like, you know, the small dopamine of grinding, I guess.
1 to 99 would take you to a lot of places in the world, provided you weren't an acolyte or a mage, that is. And it would take a significant portion of your time in the game. And slowly seeing your character grow as well as your gear get better is pretty much the game itself. Don't get me wrong though, once you reach level 99 there was still a lot of things that you could do, as certain dungeons in the game did require a max level party to completely clear. However, the journey to 99 was basically the game itself. This was also because leveling was quite satisfying. Even though XP rates were abysmal, especially in 1x, the satisfaction that you would get when you leveled enough and you were able to advance your job class,
it's definitely not the kind of thing that appealed to me, right? I understand it appealed to others, but I don't see the fun in that. Just grinding to level up and see a number go up in a vacuum doesn't appeal to me, right? In a normal game where there's a lot of other things to do that are tied to you leveling up and progressing, maybe, but in a context like this where the whole point is just to level up and that's the only thing that feels good, it's not really my thing.
it's pretty addicting, which is why despite taking a long time, many people had alts and many people even enjoyed just leveling in the game and creating each job. That's also just the base leveling. The gearing and building of the character gets way more in depth. Let's talk about that a little bit. You basically start the game as a novice. Eventually you level up to get a job. Back then there were only a few jobs to choose from: swordsman, merchant, thief, mage, acolyte, and archer. Each with its own unique playstyle, and each job had a different form of quest or test to be able to become that job. So even as a novice you had to think about these job changes and how difficult they may be. For example, with thieves, you would have to duck and dodge enemies in a pyramid where they could and would one-shot you to reach the thieves' hideout, then stealing some mushrooms off a farm so that you could prove that you are capable of becoming a thief. Which is a lot different than an acolyte, which would have you go on a pilgrimage to a foreign monastery in order to achieve an understanding of the gods of the world in order to devote yourself to them. The job quests were interesting, albeit sometimes frustrating, as some of them were difficult for certain classes to do. Luckily, there was a lot of players back then, so it wasn't hard to find someone who was also on the quest. And the classes themselves are diverse enough that they can be played a lot of different ways, like having a battle priest instead of a full support priest. Eventually, these classes evolved into alternate classes and transcendent classes to third jobs and currently fourth jobs, and I heard there are more down the pipeline. The process of leveling is quite an adventure in of itself and involves a lot of grinding and gearing all the way to max level. This is all supported by the RPG system of Ragnarok Online, and to say that the RPG system of RO is deep is an understatement, especially how it's evolved today. I mean, just look at this. Although pre-renew,
I mean, obviously, like any game that has been around for so long will have a stupidly deep system going on.
Wasn't as complicated as renewal, there was still a lot of information that you needed to know in order to build your character as effectively as possible. The problem though was the internet isn't quite like it is today. Information about the game wasn't readily available, and well, the game doesn't really do a good job telling you on what you should do in order to help your class. So while guides were present at the time, it was hard to find a guide for the class you play, as most information about it is either vague, unreliable, or just plain wrong. You only get a general idea of how to build your character. Like if you were a thief, then your character would love agi and strength, while a mage class would like int and dex. It's not the same level of guides we have today where you basically follow a step-by-step guide and everything is explained, all the formulas are there.
Which kind of takes some of the fun away, I feel like.
At the time, you basically had to build your character blind. They even released multiple guidebooks just to explain the systems of the game, so information was quite difficult to get, and technically it was paywalled by the guidebooks. Well, to be honest, this wasn't entirely a bad thing. I would even say it was a good thing, because now you had to ask other players who might know what they were doing to help you build your character, which...
So basically, yeah, you're you're encouraged into interaction, right? But today you just look up a YouTube video or something.
invited a strong social atmosphere. Oftentimes in school, we would even converge on that one guy who had the guidebook and just read out the guidebook in order to learn about the game. And once you actually learn the stat system in the game, it was actually quite satisfying to be able to build your character in the most min-max way possible. RO is like a min-maxer's paradise. The only problem is getting the stuff you need. Back then, there were no shopping boards or world chat. Forums were also quite unreliable, so most of the time, if you needed something, you'd farm for it. Or my preferred method, you'd spend quite some time walking around town, opening various player shops to see if you could find anything that you needed. Then more likely, the price would be set ludicrously high, so you'd have to haggle with the vendor in order to buy it. It was inefficient and time-consuming, but it was fun. These days, in modern MMOs, and well, even the current version of RO, you would simply open a market board and search for the item you needed, then all the options would appear, you'd choose the cheapest one and buy it, completely removing any social aspect of bartering in the game. Gearing was also socially inclined back then, as some of the best items could be crafted if you were a blacksmith. It also had a hilarious name like a very strong fire stiletto or something like that. These were great items for leveling, however, there were also strong items dropped by monsters, but at very low rates. So whenever a monster dropped an item, oftentimes it could be something good. But the pinnacle of gearing are in cards. Monster cards give powerful buffs that can be attached to slotted armor or weapons. For example, a Fen card would allow you to continue casting a spell despite being hit. This was considered one of the most powerful cards back in the day. However, the caveat of cards is that they were exceedingly rare, having only a drop chance of 0.01%, which is lower than most 5-star gacha rates today. Not to mention, once a card has been slotted into an equipment, there was no way of getting them back, at least back in the day. But despite their rarity, they were still quite abundant because of the number of players that were, well, farming monsters in order to level up. So cards would drop just by the sheer number of monsters killed. So while cards were rare, they were kind of essential. And once a card has been slotted into an equipment, there was no way of getting them back. At least not back in the day. Thus, there was a lot of thought put into which equipment would be best for the card to be slotted into, and slotting it would be quite a commitment, as the value may drop because maybe the item is not good for certain classes and stuff like that. Oh, and speaking of which, a feature that's no longer in almost any modern MMO is being able to sell or trade items you've outgrown. Today's MMOs are almost always either having soul-bound or account-bound items, especially equipment. But RO back then and even today doesn't have much of this. So the old weapons or equipment that you used at level 40 could still sell after you reach level 60 once you find a better weapon for it. And it'll still be as good as new for the next player, which is why, again, it is very important to socialize with other players in the game. And what better way to do this than a guild? Guilds are basically the same as current MMOs. Not much has really...
As I always say, like when I was young, I never really played any kind of traditional MMO, but one thing that someone at school introduced me to, it was, I guess, a browser MMO maybe? Very simple. It was called Shake and Fidget. I think now there's a Steam version, but back in 2012-13 it was browser. There wasn't much gameplay. You had a character, stats, gears. You would send your character on mission automatically, right? Like you click on a mission, it says like 13 hours to completion, and that's basically the gameplay. Then there was a few things like a gear shop, stuff you can buy with real currency, and a guild system. And at some point, he had created a guild, but eventually he like stopped playing, so I took over the guild. And for like a year or two, I was running the guild. And the guild system, you know, people join. You can do little things like, you know, trade, promote people. You can do guild fights and all that, and try to rank up. So that was probably like the only time I had a kind of experience of a classic MMO in that way. You know, I would talk to people every day. I would give advice because at some point I was like, you know, kind of an expert compared to like new people joining. And again, it was a very simple game, so, you know, there wasn't too much to say. But yeah, that's the only time I had like a bit of an experience of something like that, since I never really played a multiplayer game when I was young. And now that I'm older and I don't have the interest as much for like MMO, you know.
Changed. It's a collection of players who banded together to create their own organization. Being in a guild came with a lot of perks, as most serious guild leaders would help newer players level and build their characters. Guilds also have a 50-person limit back in the day, so slots are precious, and a lot of people would even have to pass interviews to get into the top guilds in the server. Now, this isn't just for clout or anything like that, no. In RO, guilds are also formed for the purpose of competing in the War of Imperium, which is like their guild wars. Back in the day, this war would occur twice a week on a schedule, and it would be a spectacle of hundreds of players fighting over a base they called an agent. And the rewards for winning a war weren't small. Top guilds would have access to rare items for winning the war consistently. And oftentimes, other guilds would have to band together in order to take down a top guild. Now, the war would essentially go like this. A guild who owned a base would have to defend that base from any other guild that tries to take it. Before the war begins, the base owners can set up their players in a defensive position around the base. Meaning they could be on top of walls raining down arrows or spells. You could have parties that hold the front lines, or archers set up traps. They could even summon NPC guardians to fight for them, all to defend the base's core, which is known as the Imperium. Once the war begins, players from other guilds can rush in and attempt to move through the long winding roads of the base to reach the Imperium and break it, all the while fighting the guilds that owns the base and other guilds that are also trying to take it. Overall, it's a clusterfuck of hundreds of players, and only the best and most organized guilds would have a chance of victory.
That makes sense.
There were even guilds that would reserve entire net cafes.
It just made that like in the guild fighting system there was in Check and Fidget, people had to like manually join in once you declared like a guild war, right? It's like guild war in 2 days, and people would manually have to be logged in and click join. And so I remember like part of managing this thing was to obviously fire anyone who wasn't like consistently logging in, but also like when you declare a guild war, hoping that everybody will actually join, because that was kind of like what would make the difference whether you win or not. And I, you know, in a server I was on, because I think there was different server, out of the thousands of guild, ours did pretty well. I think we were like in a sub 30 by the time I stopped playing or something. At some point I just got bored of it. I'd gotten pretty far, yeah. But obviously it was again a game where like I think there was a mushroom system, which was like the currency or something. And with mushroom you could do stuff like, you know, like a bit of pay to win, not to the extreme as to this game, but a bit of it. And the top guild definitely did that, right? And also it was a simple game of like, if you've been playing longer, you know, you're gonna be a top guild and people under just cannot catch up, because it's all about how long you've been playing, and you know.
For the purpose of doing War of Imperium. Like I said, this was a huge deal, as winners of the war would have access to a private dungeon where loots and mini bosses can be farmed, as well as a treasure chest to open every week they hold the base. The items found in these treasure chests can be used to create god items. This would boost the power of a player in that guild and propel their progress much further. This stuff can go deep into politics as well, as sometimes guilds would band together to take on a single base or hire mercenary guilds to fight for them, where if the mercenary guild takes over the base, they'll hand it over to their clients before the end of the war. Not only that, but there are even specialized builds for players who build their characters for the sole purpose of being relevant to the war. Something like Breaker Assassins and Breaker Knights, whose sole build and items is to be optimized in destroying Imperiums as fast as possible. Then you have Professional E-Callers or Emergency Callers, being a skill that is accessible to the guild leader, allowing them to summon the entire guild into the base on their position. This has a long cooldown though, so some players would dedicate their entire skill set and stats into defense and making sure that they can stay alive. And
I mean, the closest I've ever experienced to stuff like this is multiplayer shooter. Battlefield mainly is what I'm thinking, since I've played so little of those, but you know, even with actually talking to people, just fighting as a team to attack a point or something, there's really some great fun to it. Even if you're not really talking to people, right? You know, in gameplay you still feel like you're helping someone, especially like in this game where you play as a medic, if you're not a great shooter like myself.
Into slipping behind enemy lines through means of stealth or high defense in order to perform the emergency call deep within the base for a surprise attack. There are many more examples of how players can build their character specifically to be more effective in this war. You could even build up a reputation for being good at those tasks and offer your services to the highest bidder. One of my core memories of the game was finding this MVP card that only I had in the entire server, which made my character a powerful force for the War of Imperium, which means a lot of guilds were offering salaries to me in order for me to join them in that particular day for the War of Imperium. There were groups of people that were serious in getting good at PvP and War of Imperium, because the game also incentivized it through, well, esports. Yeah, Ragnarok had esports back then and still actually exists in a smaller form today. Back then it was called the RWC, Ragnarok World Championships, and through that many countries would fight against each other in a guild versus guild or party versus party format. It was interesting what party compositions people would come up with in order to win. It used to be a big event back then that was featured in live streams and even television for some countries, and it lasted a decade in yearly competitions, which is just another example of how big RO was back then. Now, I did quit playing RO just before they introduced renewal, I think around 2010. But let's talk about the 10,000 hours that I experienced in the game. And I mentioned had some caveats. Well, those caveats being not all of those 10,000 hours were spent on the official servers. In fact, I'd say only about 30% of that time was actually spent on the official servers of the game, which is still a lot. But instead, a lot of those times were spent on private servers, most of which are gone now. Private servers, as weird as it is also a true experience of RO. I bet you every player has at least tried to play a private server, and there's a reason for that. Private servers fix the problems that the official server has, or the problems that they themselves put, or at least people think is a problem. Examples of these are the max level, XP rates. 1x XP rates are extremely slow and it would take literal months to reach max level. And if you make a mistake in the build of your character, you'll have to do it all over again, as
crazy to me, the kind of game that don't let you respec.
And skill resets didn't exist before. Well, they kinda sorta existed once the cash shop was introduced. These were all
you have to pay to win to respect.
Problems that private servers fixed by increasing the max level to 255, for example, if that was more your thing, because it could unlock the full potential of a character. More on that later. And some servers even tripled or quadrupled the XP, which is counterintuitive to what I said earlier about leveling being the game. But I'll explain a little more on why these private servers chose the end game rather than the leveling experience. And there was also a ton of private server, in the hundreds. But despite these, none of these private servers would overtake the official servers, mostly due to the fact that those private servers could simply close down at any time. However, there are these rare private servers that actually did flourish. I played on one such server for years. Servers that flourish like this often have a twist to them that would make them more appealing than the official server. And the server I played on skipped the whole leveling process. I think the XP rates at the time were like 100x. But what they offered was open world PvP. So at any time in the open world, you could fight other people and other players could fight you. This added a whole new dynamic to the world, as if you needed to farm a certain item or a certain card, you would have other players to contend with, and you could easily kill them or they could kill you. And this is the reason why they skipped the whole leveling process to begin with, because, well, if everybody was leveling very slowly, you could probably just get killed by the higher level players pretty easily and would eventually cause you to quit. Instead, the appeal was getting to max level, getting a decent amount of gear, and hunting for good gear or MVPs, which are the bosses in the game, while also fighting other players who are also trying to hunt the same bosses as you. So usually parties or guilds would party up, go to the area of the boss, and there would be huge battles over the boss, and whoever kills the boss first has the chance of getting the rare loots, as here items were auto-looted. So if you killed the boss or you did the highest damage to the boss, you would automatically get all the items. Guilds and other parties would also, instead of hanging out in towns, would hang out in certain places in the world that had cool areas and stuff like that. But since it's outside of town, it would still be a PvP enabled area. So other players could say they have a beef with this particular party, they would crash their area and start a war and just start killing people in that area, which would build another level of social dynamic in the game. I don't know, I might be remembering it with rose tinted glasses, because explaining it sounds a little more different than how I remember it, but it was pretty cool at the time. These changing of the rules made some private servers extremely popular, garnering thousands of players, though never really reaching the height of the official servers. Mostly due to private servers also being far behind in updates, and of course what I said earlier, it could just shut down at any time. The official servers of Ragnarok have a long history of updates, and updates back then were pretty frequent, enough that it kept players engaged, at least at the start.
Alright. You know what, I think I'll pause there as far as this video goes. It's not exactly the kind of video I was looking for. I was looking for more like a video essay retrospective type. This is a bit more like stream of consciousness, the way it's doing it. I think we got a good idea of what the game was like. The remaining part, you know, I don't think I need to know about as much. You know, it seems kind of nice. It reminds me of, I don't remember the name, but I'd seen on a video about like some old, early 2000, classic dead MMO, which some YouTuber made a video and it kind of revived it from all the people who remembered it. It looked very similar in, well, less anime style, but, you know, the small sprite and the way you move around and all that. So yeah, Ragnarok Online seems like a nice little game. I mean, I don't think it would be really my thing, but it seems like a nice little game. Okay. But nice video, anyway. I mean, I think I got an idea of what the game was, and that's what I wanted. But yeah, I think I'll leave it at this one for today. I was planning to do one more, but, you know, the heat has really come on now, and I'm really starting to feel quite bad. So the Fanservice video we'll watch next time. I think I'm doing a stream like this maybe next week. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, check out all the original creators as always. Hope you enjoy my yapping. like, subscribe, comment, come tomorrow to the Sunday stream, and I'll see you guys next time. See you. ExoticBankai.